it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Thursday noon edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler, of course.
Hello.
So, how you guys liking our new time slot so far? I know I don't look that much more awake than I do at 9, because it's we're in the middle of a long
7.
slog. What's that?
Or it's 7.
That's true. Well, yeah, I'm up at the same time anyway, but
Yeah.
thank you guys for being here with us.
Keaton is always up. Like if I wake up in the middle of the night, occasionally I'll text him some news headline, assuming that he'll see it when he gets up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw that." It'll be like
what do you mean by middle of the night?
morning.
Well, yeah, 4:30.
Like 4:30
yeah.
in the morning.
Usually I'm up around. Yeah. I'm up around 5 these days. So yeah, I am up anyway. But especially days like this when you have news breaking into the morning, it's nice to have a few extra hours. Plus, we're out of our friend Kit Cabello's way, so that works out nice. But we are in the middle of a long slog here, of course. We thank you all for tuning in. All those who tuned in to the Jimmy Dore show last night. We had a great show last night. Got to a lot of stuff. And we will be there once again tomorrow before our one day off on Saturday. So that'll close out 6 shows in 6 days. And then we're back again Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because we're hosting the Jimmy Show on Monday, the 13th as well.
Yes. And then we're back to a somewhat normal schedule, although no sooner than I'm going to the inauguration.
That's right.
Which is, what is it? Was that Tuesday? It's next Tuesday or Monday? What day is that?
The 20th is, I believe, a Saturday. Is the 20th? What day is the 20th?
Is it Monday?
No, I think it's...
No, it's Monday.
It's Monday,
It's actually Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, really? Wow, that's interesting. Oh, it is Martin Luther King Day. You're right. You're right.
So it looks like we'll get the Rumble homepage going, so we'll have a big stream of the inauguration that day. Going to be a scene, man. It's going to be a scene.
Right. Yep. We got a bunch of stuff in the works, so thanks all for being here. Great crowd in here to start the show today. 613 strong in the YouTube chat, 481 strong in the Rumble chat. New time slot, so let's smash that like button, everybody, please, so that we can get a big crowd in here, both YouTube and Rumble. And hey, tweet this out if you'd like as well. All right, folks, we are going to jump right in. We are going to talk about a certain disaster. That's right. We're starting out with a disaster segment. And we're talking, of course, in this case, about North Carolina. No, not California. We're going to get to that, obviously. But this is a time-sensitive story here. Thousands in North Carolina face uncertainty as FEMA housing aid ends amid winter weather. That's right. Local ABC 13 News reports as of Friday, January 10th, around 3,500 households in North Carolina are set to lose their transitional sheltering assistance, TSA, from FEMA as winter weather storms in. FEMA's Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program has provided hotel rooms to thousands of Hurricane Helene survivors in western North Carolina. On January 3rd, FEMA began notifying families that were checked into hotel or motel rooms who are no longer eligible for the program. That's nice. So you give them at most a week's notice. On January 3rd, FEMA began notifying families that January 10th was the deadline. This was due to any of the following reasons. An inspection found their home is now habitable. They declined an inspection, or FEMA has been unable to contact the applicant to update their housing needs despite multiple attempts. As of January 6, more than 5,600 households were staying in hotel or motel rooms paid by FEMA. As many as 2,100 families meet the requirements for the program and will continue to stay in hotels provided by the agency. But that, of course, leaves 3,500 with a very uncertain future starting tomorrow at this recording. So Matt Van Swol has been reporting on this pretty consistently. FEMA is not answering the phone calls of Western North Carolina victims begging to extend their motel stays, because it's funny. So one of the criteria there is if they have been unable to contact people, but we know FEMA has been very difficult to contact themselves.
Yes.
Right. And so it's kind of weird that you would penalize someone for being difficult to get in touch with when we've heard thousands of stories of people trying to get in touch with FEMA with no success. So Mike McGraw, retired veteran, said, "I only have one option, to live in my truck until I can find some other place to live." It is, of course, very, very cold on the East Coast. Single-digit wind chills here in upstate New York this morning. The winter is pretty severe from a temperature standpoint. Up here, we've gotten a lot of snow as well. But from a temperature standpoint, it is a pretty severe and harsh winter so far. North Carolina, 16 degrees and snowing. So let's hear from some of these folks who are in dire straits.
There was nothing they could do. There was no, you're ineligible and we can't do anything.
I just don't see how it's right. You extend these people, but you don't extend us.
I have nowhere else to go but in the streets. They are not, I've called them several times, and they have not answered anything. They have not extended my stay. They just told me I had to be out by January the 10th.
The last day individuals and families can remain in a hotel is January 11th, but must be checked out by January 10th. And with the departure date right around the corner, many are now left wondering where they will go next.
I don't know what to do, so I got 2 more days, so I'm gonna sit it out.
Like Michael McGraw, a retired veteran now left with one option.
I live in my truck. That's it, until I can find somewhere, find another place or somewhere to live. And I have no friends. I mean, all my friends are long gone, you know. So I don't know what to do.
FEMA says extensions are available, but those are determined on a case-by-case basis.
There you go. So Matt tweets again, in 24 hours, FEMA will be kicking out 3,500 families in Western North Carolina out of hotels in the middle of a 14-degree winter snowstorm. Homeless shelters are now calling churches, scrambling to set up more beds as the number of people in shelters in Western North Carolina is likely to double tomorrow, which is, of course, going to tax the civilian infrastructure, the sort of mutual aid infrastructure that has been built out in North Carolina. And the people themselves have done a pretty impressive job. Here's a report highlighting some of that work.
Western North Carolinians hit by Helene where it often hurts the most, housing. Some families left with nothing except the clothes on their backs. FEMA putting up nearly 13,000 of them in hotels. But when the federal program ends on Friday night, many of them will have nowhere to stay. That's when Rogers and ABCCM come in.
In a lot of ways, we feel like we were prepared and designed for days like this.
So ABCCM stands for Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministry, and that's who this guy's with.
So we're ready.
Ready for a higher possible demand in resources than the nonprofit has ever seen before. And we're not just talking about somewhere to stay.
You see the food behind us. We can arrange groceries on a weekly basis. There's all kinds of ways to put together the right combination for each individual situation.
Rogers says ABCCM helps roughly 1,500 families a month. But in January, that number could soar above 2,000.
50% more than what we usually help.
ABCCM's 4 locations could be pushed to capacity. But Rogers says volunteers are standing by.
We've got 300 churches. It doesn't take long for them to say, we're here. How many more do you need?
In Buncombe County, Mark Liverman, News 13.
So that's Channel 13 News, which put out the written article that we just featured a moment ago. Matt also tweets, FEMA's confirmed 3,500 households will lose their transitional sheltering assistance. Videos from the nonprofit Beloved Asheville's, where this was apparently originally posted, show a car line 1 mile long for portable heaters and propane. We'll take a look at this. So once again, people have stepped up. These nonprofits seem to have stepped up. There seems to be some mutual aid, and that is going to be put to even further test, apparently, starting tomorrow into Saturday. Apparently, checkout deadline is tomorrow for 3,500 households, and the deadline to actually get out of the hotel or the shelter is going to be Saturday. And so people have stepped up. This is what it has come to. You know, it is kind of amazing to see the country sleepwalk through its own demise like this, you know, and this level of despair that has just set in is part of why, when pressed on, you know, the eve of the presidential vote, I thought maybe Kamala would win because I thought maybe the country is just that down on itself. Turns out they had a little fight left in them, but we see where that ended up. We see where that's taking us. And that wasn't a surprise to us here at this show, which is why we never promised you anything. But I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry to start the show off on such a negative note, but a real downward spiral. I saw Eric Rousseau give us a rumble rant there. We'll get to it in a minute. I'll put it up on the screen. He says America's circling the drains. It is. This is America circling the drains. And the fact that people, you know, band together and help each other is great. You know, that is the best of the American spirit. But we have to figure out a way to harness that good energy and that concern for each other into productive political movements, because there is no reason whatsoever why families should be kicked out of hotel rooms in the middle of winter following this apocalyptic natural disaster. If people had a clue how much money this government spent around the world for purposes of keeping our boot on the necks of other countries around the world, forget about countries we're even at war with now, just occupying other countries, military bases in all these other countries. The fact that you're going to nickel and dime 3,500 households in the middle of winter in 15-degree weather in the snow, like, you know, at a certain point, something's got to give.
Well, the whole government, really post-Reagan, has taken on the same tone as our mass incarceration complex. It's all punitive. It's all punitive. It's all, hey, we're doing you a favor. You should have been able to take care of yourself.
Right.
You're really skating on thin ice here. So you've been getting help for more than 36 minutes. So you better call 17 phone numbers and learn how to tap dance to Let's Misbehave.
Right.
For at least 7 minutes. And then you can continue to get aid for another half hour.
And when you call us, we probably won't answer. But when we call you, you better answer.
You better answer, right. So the whole tone of government is, what do you want from us? We want, all right. Here's a couple of dollars. Don't come back and bother us again.
Right.
Now, if you look at how the whole system functions, you know, there's a book I'm reading now, Capitalist Realism, that's really going to first principles, which I think we must. We're all in the matrix. We're all assuming that there's something natural, normal, or unavoidable about the way our society is structured. And there
Right.
isn't. There isn't. In many ways, the incentives of capitalism are killing us. They're killing us. If you look at this point at what's happening in LA and what's happening in North Carolina, well, that's in many ways the end result of decades of tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. It was all supposed to trickle down to us, right? Everyone was supposed to benefit. Well, this is the result. And not only is there no money and no resources, and what money and resources there are being held very close by the government, having a society that favors oligarchy, that favors wealth that way, informs the tone of the society.
Exactly.
It becomes, if you have a society that's structured like an aristocracy, you shouldn't be surprised when your government treats you the way aristocracies have historically treated peasants, like an inconvenient, an ungrateful mob whose demands upon their betters is, oh, well, this is very, very trying. Oh, fine. Give them some bread.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And, look, we don't like to play these kinds of games because ultimately, we don't think it was of paramount importance who people voted for this time. And, we can't make the case that the Democrats have your back any more than the
Republicans. This is happening
do.
under the Democrats.
We're learning that in Los Angeles right now, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to put it in this way. I'm not trying to put it in terms of red versus blue. But I will say a lot of people who find themselves in these situations tend to be people who believe in that rugged individualism.
Right.
And I hope these are teachable moments. I hope these are teachable moments, that banding together. Yes, I mean, it's great that this Christian nonprofit is housing people. I mean, I give them all the credit in the world for that. But at the same time, we have to recognize that it should be the role of the state. And by the role of the state, we mean the responsibility of each other to organize to make sure that we are not dependent upon charity in the event of something like this. There's no reason FEMA should be kicking them out. FEMA is a government agency. This government can afford to put 3,500 families up in a hotel through the end of the winter so that if another arrangement has to be made by that point, it can be done when it's, more than 20 degrees outside, right? It can be done when there isn't a line a mile long for space heaters and for propane, right? In case people are in really dire straits. And that assumes that there's even a shortage of money and resources, which if we prioritize the right things, of course, there would not be. And there is not. There is not. It is a warped system of warped priorities that has put people in this spot. And what are we at now? What was that? Early October? So now we're more than 2 months out. Was it early October or early September when those hurricanes hit? I think it was maybe end of September into October. So we're talking about quite a long time. Quite a long time since this happened. I could have those dates wrong. For some reason, I think I do. But either way, it's been at least a couple of months. And the fact that you still have people, I mean, you had people sleeping in tents. Some people didn't even get this shelter assistance. We're talking about the people who were fortunate enough to have it.
September 24th to the 27th.
Okay, so it was end of September. All right. So, yeah, there you have it. There you have it. Just a horrible story. And obviously, big credit to those organizations who are stepping up as best they can and doing the best they can under just horrible circumstances. I can hear the wind howling right now. I mean, it's freezing out.
Yeah.
In the East Coast, it is really cold.
Yep.
Really cold now.
Yep. I like bracing kind of frigid cold, and I went out to get some stuff yesterday and I was like, man, I am getting back inside as quickly as possible. I thought I was gonna take a long walk, sit on a bench. I hadn't been out because we're doing this show and Jimmy's show. I don't get to leave the house, and nah, man, I got what I needed. I came right back.
Yeah. Yep. It is really brutal out there now. Nas M, thanks for the $5 on YouTube. Pardon me. Hey, I could get used to watching you 5 days a week like Hardlens Media. Like the new time slot. Thank you, Nazam. Appreciate that. Mike, thanks for the $20. It's very kind of you. Not at work. Lucky to catch a live show. Well, thanks for being here, Mike. We appreciate that very much. Hillary Hinton says, I have a training session at work today from noon till 2. Can you postpone the show until I'm available? Thanks so much. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. Biden, 71. Trump commenting to FEMA's slow response to Paradise, California fire in 2019 doesn't make him some Quasimodo. I agree. Thank you, Biden. Appreciate that. Miserable Lib, sending love from Dallas, enjoying my dose of sanity while our city has its usual complete meltdown at even the possibility of any real winter weather. Is that true? Are they expecting some of that snow? I know there's a Arctic front moving across like a band of like the central U.S. I didn't think it was going to go that far south, but maybe you're getting some of the residual sort of wintry weather from that. But I do know, wasn't it, when was it that Texas got some snow last? I forget when that was. I thought I recalled that in the news a few years back. Corky Iannucci spotted at Nobu, Malibu prior to fires. At Nobu, I remember Nobu. America is circling the drain. There you go, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we are going to move right along. Okay, so we covered this quite a bit yesterday when we were hosting the Jimmy Dore show. But, of course, the ongoing disaster in Los Angeles is a major focus of today's show. Even though we did cover it yesterday, there's just so much new to talk about. And so Chief Nerd posted this video here, Real Life Apocalypse. So this just gives you a sense of how Los Angeles looked this morning.
Apocalypse in California. Bro, real life apocalypse in California. Everything is burning to the ground. You guys, it's like a zombie land. Look at this. Look at this, bro. Everything's burning to the ground, you guys. People left their cars. They left everything behind. Newscaster out. Man. If this ain't crazy, then what's crazy, you guys? Is the world coming to an end? Oh my God, look at the grocery store. Look at this shit, you guys. What the fuck? Oh my God. Real life apocalypse. Wow. The food market is burning down. What? The elementary school?
That is crazy footage. It really, that looks like a first-person video game, you know, driving through a war zone. I mean, it really does look like something out of a movie.
Yeah, there have been videos going around of, like, the Sunset Strip burned down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, square blocks, entire square blocks. I mean, it looks decimated. You know, Jackson Hinkle tweeted out a photo of just block after block after block of rubble. And he said, this isn't Gaza, this is Los Angeles, you know. And, you know, I mean, he didn't mean that in a funny way, obviously, it's because it's not funny, but it is true. I mean, we've been seeing footage of just decimated war zones. And, of course, we wouldn't call Gaza a war zone. That is being genocided. But the ruin there is, I mean, when you look at overhead images of these parts of L.A., it looks just like that. I mean,
Right.
This is the second most populated city in America. Like this is a catastrophe on probably the largest scale we've seen in decades in terms of a city in ruins. I mean, since Katrina, And
Since
you know,
Katrina.
and you know, no disrespect to New Orleans, obviously. In New Orleans, that was an act of, really, I would argue, the sabotage and intentional neglects of a poor black section of a city. And so, you know, I don't want to, you know, be disrespectful in comparing the pain and the trauma and the loss, but just in terms of size, you know, the French Quarter is not the French Quarter, the lower Ninth Ward, which was the area that was affected by, in 2005, a much, much, much smaller area than this. This we're talking about, you know, Los Angeles Metro is, I think, the largest city in America by land area. And in terms of population, the city of LA, second only to New York. So, yeah, I mean, this is devastation on such an unbelievable scale that it is really difficult to fathom. And, of course, there are people who don't have to think it up in their minds. There are a lot of people living through this right now in Southern California. Donald Trump tweeted against Gavin Newsom, but yesterday he got in front of the camera and thought he would double down on his attacks.
Criticism of Governor Gavin Newsom. Are you willing to work with him, and do you believe that federal aid should be provided to California for as long as it takes?
Well, it's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called a smelt. And for the sake of a smelt, they have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants.
For the sake of a smelt.
It was a terrible thing.
That sounds like the title of a Dr. Seuss book. For the sake of a smelt.
And in the Castro, I've heard they do things with that smelt. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. That's the only reason they want to save it, I understand, because they ran out of gerbils.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Called a smelt. And for the sake of a smelt,
they
have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants today in Los Angeles. It was a terrible thing.
That's going to be our play
get that
about
done.
this.
It's going to finally be done. I got it done from the federal side, and he didn't want to sign it, but it's not going to happen again like that. There's no reason. Can you imagine? You have farmers that don't have any water in California. They have plenty of water. They don't have a drought. They send it out to the Pacific, and it's crazy. So what's happening in California is a true tragedy. I know those areas very well. I have many friends living in those houses. That is a true tragedy. Nobody ever thought. I mean, virtually Beverly Hills and areas around Beverly Hills are being decimated. The biggest homes, some of the most valuable homes in the world are just destroyed. I don't even know. You know, you talk about a tax base. If those people leave, you're going to lose half your tax base of California. This is a true tragedy, and it's a mistake of the governor, and you could say the administration. They don't have any water. They didn't have water in the fire hydrants. They don't have water. And yet they have, the water comes from, you know where? Up north. And it comes down at levels, they give millions and millions of barrels of gallons of water that they have, and they send it out into the Pacific. For the Pacific, it's like a drop, it's nothing. But for California, it would take care of the whole state. So what's happened is a tragedy, and the governor has not done a good job. With that being said, I got along well with him when he was governor. We worked together very well, and we would work together. I guess it looks like we're going to be the one having to rebuild it. But what happened there, I don't think there's anything that I've ever seen quite like it. And the insurance companies are going to have a big problem because you're talking about big, big dollars.
Well, we're going to get more into the insurance company side of this in a later segment. But Anderson Cooper, a little bit of a tougher gig than New Year's Eve here. He's out there in the middle of all this. And he asked Governor Newsom for his response to Trump's comments.
We're in the public safety phase.
I hate to even ask this question, but the president-elect chose to attack you, blame you for this.
One can't even respond to it. I mean, people are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives. Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say. I won't. I stood next to a president of the United States of America today, And I was proud to be with Joe Biden. And he had the backs of every single person in this community. He didn't play politics, didn't try to
Joe
divide us.
Biden was proud to be with Theodore Roosevelt because that's who he thought you were.
That's who we thought you were. That's right. Well, let's take a look at a highlight from this meeting with Biden, where Joe Biden thought this was the appropriate time to announce that he is now a great-grandfather. That's right.
Notification yesterday their home is probably burning down. Today, the parents are maybe still standing, I'm not sure. But the good news is I'm a great-grandfather as of today. I have a granddaughter, and a baby girl, a baby boy. So I remember this day.
Gotta watch Newsom's delayed reaction to this. Newsom was like, God.
He's like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening.
Why did he have to come? Why do I have to stand here next to him? He's like, God, counting down the days when this guy can't just tank the part. Don't forget, Newsom, until now, I mean, I think this is absolutely devastating to Newsom's prospects in 2028, but he certainly plans on running in 2028, and he knows that if this event is fresh in the minds of voters by 2028, he's got no shot. And here's Joe Biden. Look at the look at the look on Newsom's face. Hold on, let's just look at his reaction when he announces that.
I'm a great-grandfather as of today. I have a granddaughter, and a baby girl, a baby boy. So
go ahead.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Yeah, right. This guy's just an absolute wrecking ball to his party. Just like doing everything imaginable to like tank the party. Stands next to the governor. Yeah. So I was just talking about this guy's house burns to the ground. It's terrible. Hey, good news is I became a great-grandfather.
Good news
How about a mazel
is
tov?
I saved money on my car insurance.
Yeah, right. Good news is I woke up with an erection this morning. First time in a while.
It's the first time since I assaulted terrorists.
Right. Yeah.
The
stress of the office is wearing off.
I have never understood the belief that Gavin Newsom has a snowball's chance in hell in a presidential race. He's saddled with California. That is not a good thing. That's not a good thing. As we saw in this last election, there are not enough libs to win an election on the most Joy Reid deranged MSNBC viewers alone. You need more voters than that. There is nobody outside of that cohort who thinks the fact that you were the governor of California in this era is a calling card to recommend you for the presidency. He has no political future. I have no idea why people even entertain the idea that he does. Before the fire, California has done terribly throughout his tenure. Look at this poor Smelt. Even the Smelt doesn't like him.
Even the Smelt. And the thing is, this did not work out well for the Smelt. So even with the maneuvering, they still got screwed, as Trump said. It didn't work. He's even screwed over the Smelt.
He even screwed the Smelt. Between his what was it, the French Laundry that he was going to during the pandemic for his fundraiser. California's been losing population. Businesses are leaving the state. Now, whatever your analysis of that is, his tenure has been terrible. I talked about this a little bit last night on Jimmy's show. I've talked about it before on this show. You know, when I went out there, it's like a year ago right now that I went out to L.A., and I hadn't been there in 21 years. It looks like a third world country, man. Now that is a result of decisions and policies that predate Newsom, but it improved the situation. It's terrible there.
Well, if anything, I mean, California not too long ago, I forget when this was touting this big surplus. They had this huge budget surplus, and look what they did with it. I mean, you got people sleeping under every bridge. You have income inequality rearing its head, in sort of every corner of every city there. San Francisco has become a playground for the ultra-rich and unlivable for everyone else.
That's it.
LA's a bigger city, so there's a little larger of a middle class there, but not really. Not really.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I first went to LA when LA was still revered as the American place of dreams the first time I went there in the 80s. And yeah, I found it a very strange place, very bizarre. But it was what it was. If you dug that, you dug that. Now, it's really a shadow of what it was in that era. So the idea that somebody could be, and look at San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco is also, the whole state is a wreck. Like what? But like the fire is just kind of the capstone to his governorship, which has just been terrible for that state throughout. And again, I mean, it was going in that direction before Gavin Newsom got there. But now it's like the worst combination of gentrification and defunding of public services. Like very often the trade-off with gentrification is all these people with money come in, you increase the tax base, these people have certain expectations of what the city is going to provide, and it winds up making everything very clean, very safe, very sterile. LA, it's like the worst of both worlds. And San Francisco as well, where you've got gentrification making everything unaffordable, but it's a total third world shithole.
Right. Exactly. You don't even really see the benefits of that extending beyond the very rich. Right. That really is what these cities have turned into. But let's get into this a little more. So Trump blames California's governor and his water policy for wildfires. The Times writes up, President-elect Donald J. Trump on Wednesday blamed California's Democratic governor for the failure to contain fires engulfing parts of the Los Angeles area, turning a still evolving natural disaster into a political opportunity and accusing the state's government of letting environmental policies run amok. In a post on his social media site, Mr. Trump mocked Governor Gavin Newsom, calling him incompetent and claiming that the governor had blocked an infusion of water to Southern California because of concern about the impact on a threatened fish. Governor Gavin Newsom refused to sign the water restoration declaration put before him that would have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snowmelt from the north to flow daily into many parts of California, including the areas that are currently burning in a virtually apocalyptic way. He wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called the smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but it didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid. I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is to blame for this. On top of it all, no water for fire hydrants, not firefighting planes. A true disaster. The governor's press office responded with a statement on social media. There is no such document as the Water Restoration Declaration. That is pure fiction, the statement said on X. The governor is focused on protecting people, not playing politics, making sure firefighters have all the resources they need. Debates in California over water have a long history. Most of the state's water comes from Northern California, which receives more rain and snow each year than Southern California, as has been the case so far this winter. But most of that water is used by Central Valley farmers and Southern California residents, setting up a perennial battle over how much water the state and the federal government should send south. For water purposes, the conflict is over whether to divert some water to the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta and San Francisco Bay to save the smelt and other ecosystems, or to send it to farmers in the Central Valley and urban users like Los Angeles City residents. Growers in Southern California get much of their water from a different system through the Colorado River. So as you can see there, there is some truth to what Trump is saying. Obviously, I was not able to find in my research any such water restoration declaration, and so it seems to be that he did pull that one out of his ass. But as you can see here, even according to the Times, that the diversion in question did prioritize the smelt over farmers in the Central Valley and urban users like LA. So it doesn't seem to be a total fabrication. That battle has generated years of litigation over the fate of the fish. This Delta smelt is a federally threatened species and a California endangered species, so courts have often dictated how much water the state can pump south and how much it can divert to the ocean. So, there is recency bias when we are creating our year-end awards, but there's got to be some special award this year for the Delta smelt. We have to remember that. I don't know. I mean, it's not their fault. You can't call them dissidents of the year. They're certainly not assholes. As we said, it's not their fault that this is happening. They're just caught up in all this.
Yeah.
But we got to have some recognition for the smelt.
Yeah, as we go, we have to tell Jake to just make notes.
Yeah,
about those things.
Make notes. We have to carve out a special category
Or
for the
we're gonna
smelt.
forget all about the smelt.
Right, exactly. And they might be extinct by then, so it might be especially important to honor them. Because I'm telling you right now, the Delta smelt are not winning over too many friends.
No.
Right now. They are in a tough spot. They were put in a very, very tough spot by all of this. In 2019, during his first term, Mr. Trump pushed changes that would have diverted more water to growers in the Central Valley. His Interior Secretary was David Bernhardt, who was a lobbyist in Washington for Westlands Water District, a big player in the valley that delivers water to farmers. Those changes were opposed by environmentalists who expressed concern about the impact on fish like salmon and smelt. The Biden administration, working with Mr. Newsom, backed a different plan when Mr. Biden entered office that allowed water to flow, but with more efforts to protect fish. More on that in a couple of minutes, all right? The Biden administration backed a different plan when Mr. Biden entered office. That plan, apparently those new rules were just announced a couple of weeks ago. In his post on Wednesday, Mr. Trump said, "I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California," blah, blah, blah. We read all that in its entirety the first time. But it's not clear that the diversion of water that Mr. Trump proposed would have affected the explosion of fires in the Los Angeles area this week or the ability of firefighters to battle it. Water supplies have been strained in Pacific Palisades, where some firefighters connected hoses to hydrants on Wednesday only to find them empty. And some firefighting planes were grounded as the fires erupted on Tuesday, but officials have said that was because of high winds and smoke, not because of a lack of water. Officials also disputed Mr. Trump's suggestion that the dispute over the smelt and other fish hampered the firefighting efforts this week. The water wars have largely focused on the need for irrigation by farmers, not on the use of water by firefighters. So, now I have been researching this for the last couple of days, putting together first the show for the segment for the Jimmy Show last night, and then this one as their feud has sort of heated up. No pun intended. Unfortunate use of words, perhaps. But it does seem to me like, Trump has been on this issue for a while. It also seems very unlikely, given the scale of the fire and the intensity of the winds, that you would have averted much damage had they gotten more water there. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump is wrong to say that I've been sounding the alarm about lack of water to L.A. for many years, and he has. And look, you got square blocks in ruins. So if you could save 100 homes with more water, it's worth doing. I'm not saying that. Right. But it seems like the claim, which Trump is not making explicitly, but, when you look at what he's saying, he's starting, it suggests that the moisture in the grounds that he laments, a lack of moisture in the ground, like for the farmers, that could have been distributed throughout Southern California, which would have prevented these fires. There doesn't seem to be much truth to that. So, I think this was obviously just a horrible, horrible lack of preparation on the mayor's part and on the governor's part. They knew there were going to be record high winds. They knew there had been a drought going back 8 months. That, to me, is more damning than the water supply situation. But given that Trump has been talking about this for now almost a decade, not just in 2019, but as we'll see later in the segment, almost a decade, there is a case to be made that they should have found a way to get the city more water. I mean, I think that's pretty evident.
Yeah, well, this, we just did the North Carolina segment. This is from one end of the country to the other. It's just poor government. The incentives of government at this point are just to kiss ass on rich donors. The public is an afterthought.
Right. Of course. Of course. Now, I want to get a little more into this. More water for urban areas, some farms. Biden, Newsom officials announced long-awaited new water delivery rules. And if you notice, the date on this was not immediately after Biden took office, as the New York Times kind of implied, but December 20th, 2024. So in other words, just a couple of weeks ago. State and federal water officials announced today their long-awaited new rules for operating two massive water delivery systems that serve 30 million Californians and much of the state's farmland. The rules will oversee operations of the State Water Project and the Federal Central Valley Project, which carry water from Northern California rivers to south to San Joaquin Valley farmers, Los Angeles area residents, and many other water users in the southern half of the state. Deliveries will increase for major urban water suppliers and many farms, while they'll be cut for some farmers. Schedules for releasing water from Lake Shasta, the state's largest reservoir, will be revised. Many farm groups and urban water districts applauded the new path forward, commending it as the best of several alternatives analyzed by state and federal officials for maintaining water supplies while protecting the environment. Now, just a note, the environmentalists were apparently not happy with this. They thought this was worse than Trump's original plan. So they were pretty pissed off about that. So once again, no real relief in sight for the Delta smelt. Okay, in all of this, the effort to protect the smelt was in vain and ended up causing a lot more problems for the Delta smelt than if they hadn't tried at all. I think the Delta smelt are the big losers in all of this at the end of the day. As of this moment, Gavin Newsom and his Los Angeles crew have contained exactly 0% of the fire. It is burning at levels that even surpassed last night. This is not government. I can't wait till January 20th, so Trump really making hay out of this. No water in the fire hydrants, no money in FEMA. This is what Joe Biden is leaving me. Thanks, Joe. Now, I said a few minutes ago, Trump has been talking about this not just since 2019, but since 2016. So here he is on the campaign trail. So this was in advance of the California primary. This was posted to CNN's YouTube May 28th, 2016, at a rally in Fresno, where he references the Delta smelt. Not by name, but you can see what he's talking about now almost 10 years ago.
Telling California voters that he is going to solve the state's 5-year drought.
We're going to solve your water problem. You have a water problem that is so insane. It is so ridiculous, where they're taking the water and shoving it out to sea. And I just met with a lot of the farmers who are great people, and they're saying, we don't even understand it. They don't understand. Nobody understands it. And I've heard this from other friends of mine in California, where they have farms up here, and they don't get water. I said, oh, that's too bad. Is it a drought? No, we have plenty of water. I said, what's wrong? Well, we shove it out to sea. And I said, why? And nobody even knows why. And the environmentalists don't know why. Now they're trying to protect a certain kind of 3-inch fish.
Trump did not go into detail about how officials would open up.
He's been on those Delta smelt for a long time.
I grabbed Gavin Newsom by the shoulders. I slapped him. I said, what does this state to you? He said, it's my sister. I slapped him again. He said, it's my daughter. I slapped him again. He said, it's my sister. He doesn't know what's going on over there.
Yeah. Yep. So there was Trump's routine back in 2016. So, look, you could make the broad point. Look, I'm a stickler for accuracy, I suppose. So in going down this rabbit hole all day yesterday and then more into the night last night, I mean, I've learned more about this fucking smelt in 2 days than most people will learn in a lifetime. But, you know, as a stickler for accuracy, I do have to say that, like, I don't believe that but for the rerouting of that water, you'd have a pristine and fully functional Los Angeles right now. I think this was a confluence of circumstances that led to a horrible disaster that the likes of which, you know, I'm not sure how well could have been mitigated under any circumstance. I will say, though, big picture, very broadly speaking, yeah, I mean, look, Trump's been saying since 2016 there's not enough water in LA. So whatever your solution might have been, whether it was the rerouting of this water out to the ocean, which should have come downstate, something. You could make the case, especially the Democrats who are, especially California Democrats, who are very much the party of climate change. I mean, this is really the home of all these environmental regulations and electric cars and things like that. You think that if they really took that problem as seriously as they claim to, they'd have come up with a way to get more water to Los Angeles over the past 10 years. And to have this all culminate in this, yeah, it's devastating for Newsom. Devastating. Now, Russell didn't believe in his prospects before this, but this is absolutely crushing.
I never understood why anyone talked about him as a serious national candidate. But hey, I'm gonna totally black pill everybody. Okay, and this is not like a government thing. This is just a reality thing. There's only so much you could do to, good government your way out of nature. There are parts of this country that are not really all that habitable without enormous amounts of human intervention. And even with that, we're only habitable under very specific conditions. So you look at New Orleans, yeah, that is more so than LA, partly climate change driven, that the hurricanes are becoming more intense. But the element where you need a lot of human intervention is there are constantly pumps going in New Orleans to keep it from flooding because it's a bowl below sea level and it's sinking. Okay? Like, there's only so much good government you can apply to that. If you keep getting hit with Category 5 hurricanes in a place that's shaped like a bowl below sea level and sinking and entirely dependent on working pumps, and that's where the government element comes in, because the government's not competent or well-funded enough to keep these pumps in good operating order. That's a constant story there, that this pump's not working, that pump's not working. That's happening all the time. There are certain parts of the country that can only support large populations under conditions where this country is able to at least minimally fund this battle against nature that these cities represent simply by their very existence, being where they are. It's inherently a battle against nature. So in the case of New Orleans, you got terrible funding, you have a degradation. There was always a problem with government corruption there, but now it's just, you have these, it should be a very rich city. You got oil and gas, but you have these enormous oil and gas companies that only pay $1 a year in taxes. So none of that money is going into the infrastructure as it should. But going beyond that, they haven't invented anything that could really stop a city from being torn apart in the face of a Category 5 hurricane. And that is where there's a climate change element as well. A lot of America was settled by enormous engineering efforts to force large populations into areas to which they are not natural. Now, LA, it's not so much a climate change story so much as the whole period of massive settlement of LA, which is really from the late 19th century down to the present, was a climactic Goldilocks zone. Throughout the 20th century, Los Angeles was unusually habitable. If you go back and you look at the history, the geologic history of that region, its climate has historically been much more like what it is now. So now it is reverting to form. There's only, yes, you could mitigate these things with government policy, but what are you going to do? Like fireproof carpet the whole state? Like, it's just not meant to have millions of people living in it. And there is only so much you can do to really mitigate that. At the very least, to make it sustainable, you would have to seriously downsize the populations and the footprints in order to really make a sustainable modern society in this region that just doesn't really want people there.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jimmy sent us that video that's been making the rounds on X where Joe Rogan was recalling a conversation with a firefighter who told him, hey, look, at some point the winds are going to blow at the right speed in the right direction where the whole place is going to go up in smoke, and there's really nothing we can do about it. And, sooner or later, our luck is going to run out. Well, this is what happened. I mean, look, when you have an area as vast as this and as developed as LA is, you have a drought and you have record high winds. That is a recipe for widespread fires. And at the end of the day, you're right. You do have to have some humility in the face of nature to understand that there's only so much you can do. The other side of that, however, is when you're talking about California, you're talking about what? The 5th largest economy in the world? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about an entity, a governing entity with resources at its disposal to, as best they can, and again, as you say, I think you're 100% right. It's not possible to insulate people entirely from the consequences of these things. But, this is a state that is very happy to virtue signal their concern for climate change by putting Tesla charging stations in every Olive Garden parking lot, right? But are you taking seriously the risk to your populations that whatever climate trends are already in motion will affect the population? Like, at a certain point, you have to say, okay, as the governor of a state, or especially as the mayor of a city, I can only do so much to stem the tide of climate trends, right? What I can do is take measures to protect my people and my state from the most dire consequences of that. Again, can you do everything? No, you can't do everything.
Sure.
You're talking about 80-mile-an-hour winds and a year-long drought. There's going to be damage, right? I'm not saying it's entirely solvable. But you do have a responsibility to do a hell of a lot more than they did. At the very least, tell people to pack a fucking suitcase and be ready to move because, hey, they knew 2 days before there's going to be 14-year high winds and we've had a drought for 8 months.
Right.
Like, that's the bare minimum you could expect from these fucking people, and they didn't do it.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. What do we got here? Tom says, don't forget Lahaina and Flint. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Brad Gilbert, when there's fires in your hood and it don't look good, who are you going to call? Not your government. I ain't afraid of having no government. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Good one there. Thank you. Daniel Hall says liberal technocracy has become such an incompetent failure that it doesn't even protect its own millionaire donors' homes from going up in flames. This is late-stage civilizational collapse stuff. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that very much. Trump, he who smelt it, dealt it. Yes, I was playing around with that. The dealt it smelt, the dealt it smelt fish. The delta smelt. The delta smelt it. Good one, Eric Husseau. Judy, Denmark, I love the 12 p.m. start time. Thank you. It's 6 p.m. in Denmark, and I'm drinking with my dinner while you tell me that FEMA is evicting hurricane victims into the frozen streets.
See, while you're drinking, we're invading Greenland.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. How do you feel about that, Judy, Denmark? Let's see. I like this one. All right. Nobody would piss in James Wood's mouth if his teeth were on fire either. Nature is healing. Yeah. Yep. Good one. I agree with that. Nujoma, thanks for the $1. The images remind me of the darkest corners of Africa. Great job, USA. Go, go, go. More money for Ukraine. Thank you very much. All right. We will move on here. Let's take Kuznetsky Bassine, $4.99, says, like Jimmy Dore says, America is a failed state. Yep. That's what these stories represent so far today, for sure. All righty. Okay. We are going to move on. So, as you may know, mayor of Los Angeles, former Congresswoman Karen Bass, was not in Los Angeles, was not in her city when these fires broke out. She was in Ghana to celebrate the inauguration of their new president. And upon arriving home, she was approached by a Sky News reporter and asked how she feels about the fact that she was away and asked for any comments. And, well, here was her answer, or lack thereof.
An apology for being absent while their homes were burning. Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
That sounds like Jordan Peterson.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
She forgot how to speak English.
No apology for them?
Wow.
I think she's trying to get away from him.
Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
It looks like she's trying to get away from him, but that door's not opening. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Where's Jamal Bowman when you need him? You know, maybe he could yank an alarm for you, slip you out. Yeah, no, he's saying you got to go that way. Oh, shit. Now I got to walk past. Now I can't ditch this guy yet.
Madam Mayor, let me ask you just again, have you anything to say to the citizens today as you return?
No. He's like, tell me what door to get out of here.
Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Can you take this down?
And there she goes. So no such luck getting an answer from her. Mayor's absence is considered a sign L.A. underestimated fire risks. Yeah, you don't say. The New York Times reports, when a series of dangerous wind-driven fires broke out on Tuesday in the Los Angeles area, Mayor Karen Bass was on the other side of the globe, part of a delegation sent by President Biden to Ghana for the inauguration of its new president. Why didn't he go? What the fuck else is he doing? He should have gone. Why do you have to send her? He should have sent Doug Emhoff to Ghana. That would have been fun. Just keep fucking with Kamala and Doug Emhoff. Just send one of them. All right, gotta do me a favor. Gotta go over to Ghana. There's a new president over there. Ms. Bass, a former...
I love what they do with the fufu over there.
Yeah, bring me back some. Ms. Bass, a former Democratic congresswoman who became mayor in late 2022, did not return to Los Angeles until Wednesday afternoon, by which point more than 1,000 homes had been burned and 100,000 people across the region had been forced to flee from their homes. The mayor's absence has drawn criticism from some Angelenos. Many said there was insufficient warning from officials about the likelihood of devastating fires, even as weather forecasts predicted extreme danger this week. By Thursday last week, the National Weather Service in Los Angeles had begun warning of extreme fire weather conditions. By Sunday, the warnings had become even more dire: rapid fire growth and extreme behavior with any fire start. So here is National Weather Service Los Angeles tweeting out January 2nd. So this was many days before, and they knew when this was going to happen, apparently. January 7th through 9th. There is the potential for moderate to strong Santa Ana winds and extreme fire weather conditions next Tuesday through Thursday. So they actually saw this coming days in advance, almost an entire week in advance. And if you look underneath the graphic there, it says impacts extreme fire growth behavior possible if a fire starts, and power outages. Use extra caution with potential fire sources. So despite those warnings, combined with the fact that, yes, you've had a drought for the better part of a year, she took off to Ghana and left the city. The mayor's absence has drawn criticism from some Angelenos. Many said there was insufficient warning from officials about the likelihood of devastating fires. Oh, sorry, that was incorrect. But Mayor Bass posted her first warning on X about the windstorm on Monday when she was already in Ghana. Okay, so the second was a week ago today. That was when the National Weather Service posted that there was risk of fire. So that was Thursday. So the first warning that she put out about this was on Monday. So that was 5 days later when she was already in Ghana. Her office did not send out a news release about fire risk until nearly 11 a.m. on Tuesday morning after the blaze in Pacific Palisades had already broken out. So you had your first warning of this on the 2nd. You don't warn people about this from your account until that following Monday, which is 5 days later. And then you don't send out a release about fire risk until after a fire has already started. Wow. Cut to there is hardly any Palisades left. The entire neighborhood's leveled. That is, like I said, just absolutely devastating to the prospects of Karen Bass, of Newsom, everybody. There was zero preparation. There was zero thought here, said Michael Gonzalez, 47, whose home burned down in Pacific Palisades, a wealthy neighborhood that overlooks the Pacific Ocean. His family of 5 was camped out in a hotel in Santa Monica on Wednesday as they began figuring out where they will live. Mr. Gonzalez, a lawyer, sorry, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez, a lawyer, said he believed Mayor Bass made a poor decision to remain overseas despite forecasters' warning of the most dangerous fire conditions in more than a decade. Quote, "It was an utter breakdown in leadership, and it starts with the mayor's office," he said in an interview. In her first news conference since returning to Los Angeles, Mayor Bass on Wednesday defended her administration when asked about criticisms of the city's response to the fire. She said the disaster was the result of months of little rain and winds that had not been seen in the city for at least 14 years. So here's a little piece of the press conference. This is just not helping, shall we say. Emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL. Yes.
There's a real winner the Dems propped up for this race.
Yeah, not really.
Because I remember there was all that drama around this with the Young Turks backed the Caruso, right?
Yeah, they backed Caruso, and then there was Karen Bass, and then wasn't there one other candidate?
Well, that was another thing. There was another candidate that I think the left liked better, but Bass was the establishment choice.
Right. Yeah, I forget who that third candidate was.
I forget who that was,
yeah. But here she is.
People in the chat will know.
Yeah, they'll know. Here she is making things worse for herself.
Now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL. Los Angeles, together is how we will get through this. Through the heroism of our firefighters, the vigilance of Angelenos, and the spirit of our city.
All of this can be found at URL.
I'm starting to feel. I sometimes I talk about our origin story was I had never heard of the Vanguard, and Keaton sent over that Aaron Mate interview, and I said, hang on a second, these guys have a channel. We're going about this all wrong. It's kind of how I feel watching this. I'm like, hang on, she could be the mayor of Los Angeles.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, why can't we be the mayor of Los Angeles then?
One more time.
All of this can be found at URL. Los Angeles, together is how we will get through
Somebody
this.
replied to my tweet. They said she should have said, all this could be found at URL. Pause. And then go on. Yeah, with the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, that is quite something. She was then asked about Rick Caruso's criticisms, which we played yesterday on the Jimmy Dore Show. We won't play the same video again here. But, of course, he took issue with the lack of preparation, with the fact that she was overseas, with the lack of water in the hydrants. So people relayed those criticisms to her here, and let's see how she responds.
The concerns about water pressure. There have also been criticisms from
Rick Caruso, who said that there was insufficient brush clearance by the city and county, from others who pointed out that the fire department had seen a reduction in its budget last spring, and that you were overseas when you should have been here. And I'm wondering, do any of these claims hit the mark? And if not, what is the real story?
Well, let me just say that we are actively fighting this fire, and this is a time for vigilance and action, not speculation. This is a time for Angelenos to come together, united, to protect themselves and their families, and also each other. So what we are seeing is the result of 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. It's a deadly combination, and I've been in constant contact with our fire commanders on the ground and our partners at every level of government. I've spoken to President Biden, President Biden's Chief of Staff, Secretary Mayorkas from Homeland Security, Secretary Todman from Housing and Urban Development, Senator Padilla, Governor Newsom. This is going to be an effort of all of us coming together, and we have to resist any effort to pull us apart. In terms of my flight home, I was on a military flight, as I mentioned, which allowed me to be in constant communication. I was on the phone, on the plane, almost every hour of the flight. So although I was not physically here, I was in contact with many of the individuals that are standing here throughout the entire time. When my flight landed, immediately went to the fire zone and saw what happened in Pacific Palisades. Thank you.
Did you also...
Well, I'm sure having the check URL lady on the phone really made the difference.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yes. So, as you can see there, folks, not much of an answer to any of the questions that were asked, namely, what's the deal with the lack of water? Why did you think it was a good idea to leave the country? And obviously, the one that she skirted right past was the budget cut to the Los Angeles Fire Department, which we will get to fairly shortly. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power filled all 114 available water reservoirs and storage facilities ahead of the windstorm, including the ones in the Palisades area, said Janice Quinones, the department's chief executive. Without aerial water supply, the heavy use of fire hydrants depleted the tanks, which crews were now working to refill, she said. Rick Caruso, a real estate developer who lost to Ms. Bass in the mayoral race in 2022, said he had a team of private firefighters in Pacific Palisades on Tuesday night, helping to protect a major outdoor retail space he owns, as well as some nearby homes. All night, he said, they were telling him that water was in short supply. This is another, sort of late-stage capitalist development. You had a lot of people tweeting out on X that, they're willing to pay people to come and basically be their private firefighter for the night to protect their home. Because don't forget, a lot of the people affected by this are pretty wealthy, right? So
you want to talk about late-stage capitalism. I was reading a story today about a Mexican work crew that kept working with the fires going.
Yeah.
They kept working the construction site in Santa Monica.
There was some tweet that talked about how someone's Amazon Prime delivery was still expected to be dropped off in the middle of all of that. Yes, that's true. That I actually did see that. All right, we will keep going here. City officials. Oh, thank you. See, I had some water. Shipped in myself. Mm-hmm. All this Tonka water kind of makes you thirsty. City officials confirmed that
what do you pay Julio?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. City officials confirmed that water tanks ran dry during the intense firefight early Wednesday in Pacific Palisades because demand surged to 4 times the normal rate for 15 hours. The system, they suggested, was not designed to supply so much water in such a short period. The lack of water in the hydrants, I don't think there's an excuse, Mr. Caruso said. This was very predictable, he said, referring to the forecasts that predicted the devastating windstorm. So again, I present both sides of this because it seems like the issue with the overhead water was not lack of water, but the high winds made it extremely dangerous to fly. And so, presenting all of that, you can make of that what you will. I think the truth is probably somewhere in between what Bass and Caruso are saying. Mr. Caruso, who served 2 stints as president of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, said it will take time to account for why firefighters struggle to get enough water to fight the fires. This is a massive failure of epic proportions, he said. To know the storm was coming and then to leave and not rush back. Leadership matters, and the first thing is to be present. Also, I would argue, maybe bring in fire departments from surrounding cities. If you had advance warning that these winds were going to be a danger, as they did, they had almost a week advance warning. Why not get the San Diego Fire Department up there? Like, why not call in reinforcements from surrounding areas? To me, the most damning element of this is the lack of preparation. And then insult to injury is the fact that not only did they not prepare, but she left the country. She flew to the other side of the world. So I want to talk a little bit about these budget cuts here. LA Fire Chief warned last month that budget cuts would affect response to large-scale emergencies. The LA Fire Chief warned in the weeks before the devastating Palisades fire that the decision to cut the department's budget by nearly $18 million would diminish its ability to prepare for and respond to large-scale emergencies. The budget reduction approved last year by Mayor Karen Bass was mostly absorbed by leaving many administrative jobs at the fire department unfilled, but that left about $7 million that had to be cut from its overtime budget, which was earmarked for training, fire prevention, and other key functions. The reduction has severely limited the department's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires, Chief Kristen Crowley wrote in a memo December 4th, 2024, just a little over a month ago. The variable overtime hours, called V hours within the LAFD, were used to pay for FAA-mandated pilot training and helicopter coordination staffing for wildfire suppression, the memo said. Mayor Bass said Wednesday evening the budget cuts did not have an impact on the fire department's response to the Palisades and other wildfires. So, again, this is another example of, okay, as the mayor of a city, you are extremely limited in terms of what you can do to control the macro factors that would bring these kinds of fires to your city. In this case, you could argue she was not she was not empowered to do that at all when you combine the droughts with the high winds. But if you understand that these are increased risks, and we certainly understand that, I mean, there have been horrible fires in LA every year dating back, the past few years now. You can't cut the fire department budget. You have to increase the fire department budget. Like, you have to prepare the city for these challenges that you know are coming. If you know these are going to be existential problems for the city, you have to adjust properly. And there does not seem to have been any real foresight on their part. Neither Karen Bass nor Newsom.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that in a place known for its wildfires, particularly in recent times, you would cut the fire department budget
by $18 million.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah, exactly.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right, exactly. So, I wouldn't say I'm sympathetic to the argument, but I understand that, hey, the fact that you couldn't get the planes off the ground is more a function of the winds making it very dangerous to fly them than the lack of water. But, you're talking about Los Angeles here. You're not talking about a small town in, middle America with a small budget. You're talking about the second biggest city in the United States, in a state that itself is the fifth largest economy, bless you, in the world. You have to prepare for these events much more. This is existential. As the executive, the safety of your people is your number one responsibility. If you know that fires have been intensifying, you owe it to the people to prepare as best you can. Now, at a certain point, you have to say year-long droughts plus 14-year record high winds equals terrible fires. It's not reasonable to say this could have been prevented outright, which is essentially what Trump said. This is all his fault. I mean, that's hyperbole, obviously. But at the core of that is a truth that, especially for the Democratic Party, which is the, party that believes in the science and the climate change, and they're the adults in the room, and they're the competent managers, and the Republicans are the saboteurs. Like, this is a stress test for everything you stand for. And you failed it pretty miserably. And part of why you failed it pretty miserably on the sort of dollars and cents side is the deference to the market for things like insurance, which we're going to get to next. But anything on this?
Nope.
All right. We will go to Mark Thicot. Where are all the clips of Newsom trying to hold back the tears for Palestinians? Back. What's that?
I'll be right back.
Oh, all right.
I forgot to do something.
All right, Russell's taking a quick break. Mark Thicot says, where are all the clips of Newsom trying to hold back the tears for Palestinians? A good question, Mark Thicot. Thank you for that. Brandon Guillory, the basic Republican thesis on the federal government had been proven true, and the Democrats played into it by selling out 40 years ago. Thank you for that. XX Red Wind DSX. Stop the smelt. Thank you. That's cool. I like that one, too. All right. Let's go to some Rumble rants, looks like here. Okay. We got Eric Rousseau. Good thing all those insurance companies canceled everyone's home coverage here in California. They saved their investors billions and billions. Isn't capitalism wonderful? Amen. That's our next segment, actually, Eric. Thank you very much for that. Snake Plissken escaped from L.A. Yeah, that's what that first video kind of does remind you of, that type of scene. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Abiding says Gavin needs to give up politics and start a podcast with Trudeau and Macron. Yeah, that's a good idea. That would be a fun one. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Macron is still he's still in power. Trudeau has time. He could probably start that up. Sooner than later. Back in my day, LA was awesome for its punk rock and metal scene. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. We had our own dissidents back then. Absolutely. And I hope you're safe. You're in Southern California, as I remember, Eric. Yep. Black Spock, thanks to the $5. While Trump and Gavin argue over water, LA burns to the ground. Yes, thank you very much for that super chat. Mo Mooney, thanks for the $5 Canadian. And just like that, the Delta smelt became California's peanut. That's right. Yes. Behan Edamad, I did a deep dive into the Delta smelt back in 2007. Apparently, it is fundamental to the ecosystem. All right, I will have to look into that more. Back in 2007, you did that. Wow, okay. So it's true. They that smelt it dealt it. That's right, Eric Maines. Thank you very much for that. All right, so we are now going to explore a different angle of these California fires. Here, woman says her parents fire insurance got canceled shortly before the fires. They're 90 years old. They've lived in this house for 75 years, and they've had the same insurance. So we're going to take a look at this video. This is 2 or 3 minutes long.
Supposed to be here, but this is my parents' home.
I know the feeling.
And they just they got canceled from their fire insurance. So they're dealing with this. They're 90 years old, and through the state of California, because of this, they're 90 years old, that they've lived in this house for 75 years, and they've had the same insurance, and these insurance people decided to cancel their fire. And we're going through this, and it just happened, and they have no fire insurance. So thank you, California insurance companies, supporting residents who pay taxes and love California. And they wonder why people leave California.
First and foremost, you did get your parents out safely.
I live in Sierra Madre. My parents are in Sierra Madre, but
And now you know that it is under evacuation as well north of Sierra Madre Boulevard.
Yeah, I snuck here. You know, there's a will, there's a way. Probably shouldn't do it, but you know what? Under the circumstances, send me to jail. That's fine.
It is.
So, under the circumstances, I imagine part of what factored into her decision to go and try and protect her parents' home is the fact that their fire insurance has been canceled, right? And so they're not going to get any relief and support if that home goes up in flames. And so now you have a lot of people like this woman here, who herself is, I believe, 62, having to take it upon themselves to protect what's theirs because insurance companies have been canceling fire policies in recent years in response to these fires. They are considered uninsurable homes. Anything before we go on?
Yeah, I mean, it's the evidence is mounting, and I am hoping that what I believe will be the total failure of Trump's administration will finally be the thing that will allow people to have a conversation that we've been trying to have for a very long time, some much longer than us. This system does not work. Everything they feed you about patriotism and, yes, well, people who work hard and play by the rules should be able to get ahead. They should, but they don't and they can't because the system is antithetical to a fair, a world of fair outcomes like that. There was a brief period where you had a kind of another Goldilocks zone, an economic Goldilocks zone, where you had the New Deal had instilled these protections for workers, and World War II had bombed most of our competitors back to the Stone Age. There was this little golden age where you had a combination of strong unions, worker protections, and almost unlimited opportunity to make money, at the very least to support your family. Right. That has created this very difficult to kill myth in America that, well, it works, it's just you have to tweak this or you have to tweak that. And it's made it very difficult to convince people in a large enough number to create critical mass for real revolutionary movements. No. The core premise of this doesn't work. And if you look at this little period where it did, in the context of the history of the country, it's the exception, not the rule. Ever heard of the Gilded Age? Right? It's not like everything was fine until recently. You had a little pocket in the post-war period where, due to very unusual circumstances, you had unusually broad-based prosperity in the country. That was an aberration. That was not the norm. This is the norm for this system.
Yep, 100%. And nothing demonstrates that more than this article here. This just came out last night. This could be the beginning of the end for fire insurance in California. I would quibble slightly. This might be the end of the end for fire insurance in California. This might be it. I think the beginning of the end was a few years ago, as we will note, as this article mentions. Wednesday's firestorm in a wealthy area of Los Angeles, which, again, this is a little obsolete because now this fire has blown everywhere, could be the final straw that breaks California's insurance market. The state's insurance market has been teetering on the edge of insolvency for years thanks to catastrophic wildfires that have driven many insurers to stop writing new policies and drop existing ones. Wednesday's wind-driven wildfires in a part of Los Angeles packed with multi-million-dollar homes could accelerate its collapse. It's obviously going to be bad, said Representative Brad Sherman, the Democrat who represents the neighborhood between Malibu and Santa Monica, where the Palisades fire, one of 6 burning uncontained across the region, had destroyed.
It's still, I've been checking the headlines. It's still completely out of control.
Oh yeah. No, this is again, this is the most devastating event in decades, as far back as I can remember. Had destroyed more than 1,000 buildings as of Wednesday afternoon. We've already seen big increases, and we've seen these increases not only in houses that are close to the brush, but in areas where you're surrounded by other homes. President-elect Donald Trump called out the issue Wednesday as he bashed Democrats for the deadly wind-fueled conflagrations that forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes. Earlier in the live stream, we showed you that video where he mentioned the insurance markets having a rough time. The fires in Los Angeles may go down in dollar amount as the worst in the history of our country. In many circles, they're doubting whether insurance companies will even have enough money to pay for this catastrophe. Let this serve and be emblematic of the gross incompetence and mismanagement of the Biden-Newsom duo. January 20th cannot come fast enough. Well, as Russell said earlier, it's more emblematic of the just fundamental design flaws in this capitalist system of ours. When insurance goes insolvent, I mean, now you're dating back to, Italian mercantilism, which was the sort of, found the genesis of insurance, right? Right? I mean, nothing is more foundational to capitalism than insurance. So when insurance fails, that's how you know your system has failed, right? That's how you know there is no safety net left. There is nothing undergirding this system anymore. It's just a black hole.
Well, and this is where, and I'm, I don't want to upset or depress people. We know a lot of homeowners out there, including Jimmy. Hey, man, I told him when I was talking to him yesterday, man, in New Orleans, the property values go down every year. And a big part of that is because you can't get insurance anymore.
Right.
You have to go to the state, which is extremely expensive and not really great insurance. It's the insurer of last resort. All of these, as these hurricanes hit, the last one, if you remember a couple of years ago, that was kind of the last straw. I think like 4 more companies left when that hurricane hit. Now that's going to happen in Los Angeles. So how are you going to sustain these property values? Like, I don't see how you don't ultimately get a collapse in property values there as these homes become uninsurable.
Yeah, I think you're right. The state's insurer of last resort, speak of the devil, known as the FAIR Plan, predicted that it would be able to pay out. We are aware of misinformation being posted online regarding the FAIR Plan's ability to pay claims, spokesperson Hillary McLean said in a statement on behalf of the FAIR Plan. It is too early to provide loss estimates as claims are just beginning to be submitted and processed, McLean wrote, noting the plan was prepared for this kind of a disaster and has payment mechanisms, including reinsurance, to cover claims. But California faces a double-barreled threat. More on the FAIR Plan in a moment, by the way, in case you don't know what that is. Private insurers could continue to drop policies and decline to write new ones, as they've been increasingly doing since a series of severe fires beginning in 2017 with the Tubbs Fire in Northern California. And the FAIR Plan, which has been absorbing the shrinking private market, could run out of money to pay its claims. That wouldn't mean going bankrupt, as McLean noted. Instead, it would draw from primary insurers to recoup its costs under state law, raising rates across all private policies and sending rates skyrocketing across the state. So what I mentioned in the last segment, when you look at the failure of the neoliberal model, which is the merging of private corporations with the state, these private public partnerships, and the whole philosophy that we could just harness the goodwill and power of the market in partnership with the government to get us through crises like this. This is what they're going to count on now. They're going to count on private insurance companies collaborating to backstop the FAIR Plan when it runs out of money, which, of course, even if that is doable, and we don't know how doable that is because a lot of the private insurance companies are going to have a hard time paying out all of these claims. Because don't forget, you got houses here that are worth $20 million fucking dollars. I mean, this is like this is not like. And again, I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just saying this is not the lower Ninth Ward, right? Where the average home value is $60,000, right? Again, I don't mean any disrespect to that, obviously. But I'm just saying, as a matter of dollars and cents, one of these homes is worth like 30 standard homes, right? So, I mean, this adds up extremely quickly. But assuming they can backstop the FAIR Plan, you're talking about a tremendous tax on the system that is going to shoot private rates through the roof. Because in addition to having paid out all of these claims to their private clients, if these firms like Allstate, State Farm, they have to backstop these fair plan claims. Again, as you said, Russell, how are you going to be able to take an insurance policy out on a home in LA after this?
Right.
It's not going to be possible. I can't see how it's possible. I can't see how they get through this. I don't even see how they get through this, to be honest with you.
Right. You're going to have state insurance, which the state's not going to be able to sustain that either. So the state would wind up having to have the federal government fund the insurance in order to keep people living there.
Exactly. This is sort of what everybody's been preparing for, said Carl Sussman, an insurance broker in West Los Angeles, who's filing dozens of claims on behalf of clients. This is why rates are going up. This is why carriers are freaking out. State Farm dropped nearly 70% of its policies in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood last year, according to a state filing, more than any other zip in the state. Hold on. Turn my mic filter on because my baby's crying. That forced more people into the FAIR Plan, which was originally created in the 1960s to insure riot-scarred Los Angeles neighborhoods, but has since found more demand in rural and suburban, fire-prone regions. In Pacific Palisades alone, the FAIR Plan insures nearly $6 billion worth of property, according to September figures, more than all but 4 communities in California. Across the state, the total value of FAIR-insured properties was $458 billion. That's almost $500 billion is essentially uninsured. That's what I mean. As we'll see in a minute, that means you're basically uninsured. Almost $500 billion worth of properties in California are forced into this really, if I might say, shady insurance plan called the FAIR Plan, triple the total insured value in 2020, according to FAIR Plan data. So in 2020, only 3% of California residents were insured under the FAIR Plan. Now, if we assume that the average value of property added, remain the same, you're talking about now almost 10%, almost 1 in 10. Again, that assumes the property values remained about the same. We don't have that math at our fingertips right now, but you could see a tripling in dollars insured by the FAIR Plan. So what is the FAIR Plan? Bank rate, FAIR Plan home insurance, what homeowners should know. So here's the deal you get when you sign up under this FAIR Plan. A FAIR Plan, which stands for Fair Access to Insurance Requirements, is a program that allows high-risk homeowners to purchase a home insurance policy. People who get insurance through a FAIR Plan are typically not eligible for coverage through the standard home insurance market because their home is located in a high-risk area or they have other red flags that deter insurers. That is neoliberal government speak for FAIR Plans are more expensive because they go to people who really need insurance but can't get it. Like if your home is high risk, that means you need insurance more.
Insurer of last resort.
Exactly. FAIR Plans are state-run programs that are financially supported by private insurance companies. A FAIR Plan is slightly different from a typical home insurance company because it is a shared market plan. So it's not just the government insuring you. It's a shared market plan. So rather than getting coverage from a single insurance company, technically several insurance companies cover your property in a FAIR Plan, limiting the amount of risk that one company assumes. Small print there. So basically they're saying, hey, if this is too risky for State Farm to take on by itself, they'll chip in a little bit of the risk. We'll get some other companies to chip in some more risk, and then they will all band together to cover your insurance claim if and when you file one. If you have to file a claim, every participating company pays for a portion of your loss. When it comes to the actual coverage, homeowners insurance through a FAIR Plan is pretty limited. Many plans only include dwelling and personal property coverage on a named perils basis. You most likely cannot get liability, medical payments, or loss of use coverage through a FAIR Plan. Further, most states' FAIR Plans only insure homes at actual cash value as opposed to replacement cost value. FAIR Plan home insurance is intended to be a last resort option. you cannot apply for home insurance through your state's FAIR plan as your first option because you will have to prove that you have been denied home insurance by several private companies. So these FAIR plans are basically shitty insurance plans that are there as a last resort for people who, oddly enough, are in most need of insurance because their homes are at highest risk. So that's what people are being forced into now at a pretty fast rate in California. The value backed by these FAIR plan sort of schemes, if you will, has tripled in just the last 4 years.
Right.
And now you don't know what the future holds for insurance in California after this, because I'd be surprised if they even make this through solvently.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's, in the end, these areas, these regions of the country, whole regions, places that people are moving to in very large numbers. I'm sorry. Texas, Florida. It's amazing to me that you have so many people who are just like, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be. Why do you believe that? On what evidence could you possibly believe that moving to these places that are clearly, whatever reason you believe, there are very few people who literally don't believe the climate is changing. You have some people who say, well, it's not the gas, or it's not, okay, whatever you believe the reason for it is. I pointed out with LA, it's somewhat cyclical. 20th century weather was optimal and unusual for the area. Whatever reason you believe, clearly there are more and more droughts, more and more wildfires, more and more hurricanes. And you have all these people moving to these places that are most vulnerable to those things. Like, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Why do you think that? Why do you think that? Even if you are not directly in the line of literal fire, the air quality resulting from the surrounding fires in these regions is very damaging to human health. It's I call it Pompeii syndrome. You know, you knew there was a volcano there. It was smoking. What'd you think? It was never going to erupt? You decided to live there anyway? Okay. Actually, there's a myth about Pompeii. A lot of people did leave Pompeii.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. The people who stayed behind were poor. Very much like the lower Ninth Ward.
Right. Yep. Wow. All right. Well, folks, hey, this is kind of exciting. We get to do a CBD ad today. Didn't think we would get to do that. What do we have here? Oh, no. Is that a CBD ad? Oh, no. I have to. All right. Let's. What is this? What is this ad here? No, it's not that. All right, I'll have to look that up. All right, I'll have to vet that a little more carefully before we read that one. See, folks, we don't just read anything. It's the same company that makes the CBD, so it's probably legit, but I want to read up more on it. See? Look at that. Look at that. See? Don't ever call us grifters. Bastards.
I mean, not for that reason.
Not for that reason. All right, well, we're going to do the old-fashioned one, the old standby. Rumble 1775 coffee. So, hey, do you enjoy the free speech that Rumble is protecting and fighting for? Well, our show on Rumble is only possible thanks to our viewers supporting Rumble's platform by purchasing Rumble's products. Most of you drink coffee every day, and that's why you have to try Rumble's 1775 coffee. It's some of the best coffee you'll find, and it's at the same price you'll buy as it's the same price as the coffee you buy now, but it's way better. Rumble 1775 coffee is free from chemicals, yet rich in flavor, and this is because their beans are sourced from high-altitude farms in Bolivia, hand-picked, roasted weekly at their facility in Miami, and delivered fresh to your doorstep. And as believers in freedom, buying from Rumble helps fight back against censorious corporations like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. So join the coffee revolution and brew rebellion with Rumble 1775 coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com, use code STUDIO, and get a free month's supply of their cognitive boosting supplement, Limitless, when you buy 2 bags of their coffee. That's a crazy deal. Supplements worth more than the 2 bags themselves, and those 2 bags are 16-ounce bags of coffee, so you get more bang for your buck than you do at the supermarket. And the reviews from the dissidents who've tried this coffee are very, very good. So go to 1775coffee.com and try their amazing coffee and use code STUDIO. All right. Yeah, this Emerald Med thing, it's like a mushroom drink supplement, it looks like. Which, I've been thinking about trying some of these mushroom drinks. I heard this is supposed to be good for you. You hear about those? You hear about, like, rise mushrooms?
Yeah, man. I mean, I saw Jesus that way once with one of those mushroom drinks.
Yeah, I'm thinking about trying. I do want to try a mushroom drink. So maybe if Emerald Med has some. Yeah, they were supposed to send us a care package. They never did. I would like to see if I can get in touch with Emerald Med.
And it was Easter, too. That was the crazy part.
Yeah, and it was Easter, yeah. Yeah, so I'll have to look into that because I would like to do, who knows? That mushroom shit might work. It's supposed to be good for gut health.
Might clear you out.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that's what it is intended to do, as I understand.
Yeah.
I Am the Owl says, I'm here in Pasadena, not in an evacuation zone, thank God. Well, that's good to hear. Hope you're well, I Am the Owl. Stings the eyes to even step outside. Yeah, bet. Everything covered in ash even 5 miles away. Fire still 0% contained. But in good news, Joe's a great-grandpa. There you go. Yes.
There you go.
Hope you take some solace in that and stay safe. Yeah, it's got to be just a nightmare. Just an absolute nightmare. So hope you stay safe out there. Nocturnal Human, I'm from California. There's a fire season no matter what happens with the fish. It's both terrible government and climate. There you go. Thank you for that. California has the driest slush funds. Thank you, Stoop Sign. Appreciate that very much. Okay, what do we got over here? Lynn Lavoie, salmon have been recovered on Klamath for our kids. Yeah, that's the... is that the dam or the river? Like I said, my brain is a little mushy on all of that because I was doing this all day yesterday. But I did hear about that project that Newsom was very, very proud of back. I think that was that 2023, if I have that right? Kuznetsky was saying, thanks to the $4.99, John Wesley Powell declared in the late 19th century that most of the American Southwest was semi-arid and so uninhabitable. Thank you for that.
Yep.
German Condor, isn't the winter supposed to be LA's rainy season? Reports of arsonists during the Santa Ana wind smells like another Lahaina. Well, we did see some footage of some people seem to be lighting fires. I don't know if that's the cause of this whole thing. Obviously, we can't say that at this point. But I did see some video of some, I don't know if they were teenagers or whatever, but
Yeah.
I saw some of
I
those
saw
videos.
the Fonz saying it was arson.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm not kidding. Henry Winkler was tweeting about that.
Oh, I thought you said. I think you meant you saw the Fonz lighting.
No,
a
I
fire.
saw the
I thought
saw
you were
the
making a
Fonz
joke.
tweeting about it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were joking. I thought you saw the Fonz lighting one of the fires.
I mean that's very common that people who make the accusation are actually the guilty
are
party.
doing it right. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's possible.
Yeah. Eric Main says Bass smelt the blame for fire. Sounds fishy to me. That's right. I thought that too. Karen Bass and then the smelt fish too. Good one. The one, thanks to the $1.99. I'm from New York. Will you guys cover the congestion tax? You know, we were going to. I've been talking all week to Russell about covering the congestion pricing. It just got pushed out because the congestion pricing seems to have worked in reducing gridlock. Apparently, the average speed of a car.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Apparently, the average speed of a car through Midtown is up 10 miles an hour now. From 29, it's 29.8 miles an hour driving through Midtown now, up from 19.8, just a couple weeks ago. So it seems to have accomplished that. Apparently, the takeaway from the congestion pricing is that cities get to like it. At first, there's backlash to it because it's an extra charge, it's an extra pain in the ass, it's an extra thing to worry about. Over time, the cities that have tried it, London, Stockholm, Sweden, Singapore, they have tended to grown to like it over time. It is a risky move heading into an election season for Kathy Hochul because you don't know if people are going to come around to it in time for you to survive. So that's the short take. But we do plan on doing more on that. It just, these fires kind of pushed it out of the show because it's a little more complicated of a segment than something we had time for this week. You know, the thing about doing this kind of stuff for a living is like, okay, most stories that come up, if it's an event that comes up, say regarding Israel or Ukraine or the minimum wage. It's usually stuff that, okay, we have background knowledge enough where we just, look at the news and we can form an opinion based on the news because we have a sort of foundational knowledge and understanding of it. This is like, fucking, what do I know about dams and rivers and smelts and reservoirs and regulations? Like, this is like, you really had to cram for this one. This is one of those issues that comes up. You're like, oh man, this is a hard one. Got to earn our money today.
Yeah. With the congestion pricing, my, reservation about it is how it affects working people. In a lot of ways, it functions as a regressive tax, because when you got people who are contractors, who are handymen,
right,
who cannot take public transportation because they have to travel with tools, this totally screws them. Now, if you could give a pass to people who have jobs where they absolutely have to drive in, then I'd be all for it, because unlike a lot of places, most places really in the country, we have a very workable public transportation system.
Right.
So if you just work in an office in the city and you like driving in, first of all, that's very masochistic. I don't know why you'd want to drive in from the island rather than to take the Long Island Railroad. I have no idea why you'd want to put yourself through that. But, man, I mean, my best friend, I used to talk about that with tolls, too, man. Tolls are a regressive tax on people with those kinds of jobs as well.
Of course.
They have no choice but to drive in.
So
if you made an exception for those people, I'd be all for it in a city like New York, where you really have no reason that you have to drive into Manhattan.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I think that definitely makes sense. Agitas, if Americans want to see what the government can achieve, they need a tsunami to hit Nantucket Sound or another earthquake to hit San Francisco. I bet the money will be found then. Well, I don't know, man. I mean
San Francisco's pretty messed up.
Well, also, I mean, if you're talking about natural disasters, I mean, these were pretty wealthy areas that were hit. Malibu, Palisades. I mean, these is big money here. There's big money here. That's part of why the insurance system is going to be taxed so heavily. As horrible as the California fires are, actors Patricia Heaton and James Woods are calling out Newsom's incompetence. This is a reality shock for them to understand the pain and majorities of others deal with daily. Yep, certainly, Kids Corner. Thank you for that very much. Okay, let's move on. What else we got here? What's next on the list? Our health insurance.
All right. Luigi kind of set off a national conversation where it is increasingly obvious. You want to talk about capitalist realism, where there are things that we just accept as part of our reality that we just need to stop accepting. I think more people than ever before have realized the health insurance companies literally don't do anything other than rent seeking. They serve no purpose in the system other than to extract money and get between patients and doctors. They provide no service whatsoever. And now these horror stories about how they actually operate are becoming more and more visible. So here's one doctor who actually had to leave the operating room during surgery to answer to the insurance company.
25 and insurance just keeps getting worse. I just did 2 bilateral deeps and 2 bilateral tissue expanders for patients. And I've never had this happen before, but during the second deep, I got a phone call into the operating room saying that United Healthcare wanted me to call them about one of the patients who was having surgery today, who was actually asleep having surgery. And, said I had to call right now. So I scrubbed out of my case and I called United Healthcare, and the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, do you understand that she's asleep right now and she has breast cancer? And the gentleman said, actually, I don't. That's a different department that would know that information. And I was like, well, she does need to stay overnight tonight. and you have all the information with you because I got approval for this surgery, and I need to go back and be with my patient now. But yeah, it's out of control. Insurance is out of control. I have no other words.
All right. Now this was put out by Wall Street Apes, which is interesting to me. During the darkest days of the pandemic, when everyone was trading on Robinhood and they were trying to break the shorts with GameStop and other meme stocks, we did some coverage of that. And I wrote a couple of articles about it. It was very interesting. If you got into it, it was not what you would have expected. It was not this Gordon Gekko greed is good ethos. It was not all of these aspiring Michael Milkens. It was lots of stories about how they wanted to get revenge against Wall Street because they were children in 2008 and their families lost their house, or their father wound up drinking himself to death because he lost everything in the crisis. So they were not, even though they were trading, they did not see themselves as traders. It was very interesting. They saw themselves as striking at the heart of Wall Street by turning its game against itself. So it's interesting now, and it doesn't really surprise me. A lot of them, because they called themselves apes, that came out of the Planet of the Apes, Apes Together Strong, right? One of their causes was to donate to gorillas and ape sanctuaries. They would, when they had big scores, they would donate Wii switches to children's hospitals. They would donate money to children's hospitals. So it was a very interesting cultural phenomenon. So it doesn't surprise me now that you would have Wall Street, an account called Wall Street Apes, which with that name is very much coming out of that scene, drawing attention to this healthcare crisis. You know, we do a lot of blackpilling on this show, but if there's hope, this is the kind of thing that gives me hope, because this is mostly a Gen Z kind of a crowd that would be attracted to a site like that, to a handle like that. And they get it. They get it. You just have to find a way to bring all the people who get it together to actually fight back against this system. So this is a follow-up post that Wall Street Apes put up about the system that would pull this woman out of an operating room. What rules are in effect that cause that?
So apparently health insurance companies have not learned their lesson from the most recent events that took place in the streets of New York. They're getting more creative about how to deny your claims or just not authorize your treatment at all. I'm going on information given to me by Blue Cross. I am a physician. When we physicians ask for a treatment to be authorized by an insurance company and they deny authorization, what happens at that point is that we are asked to do a peer-to-peer review, meaning that we, the doctor asking for the treatment, have to speak with the doctor who is employed by the insurance company, who is there only to say no. Now, this always has taken place on a scheduled call, and it has to be scheduled around the insurance company doctor's schedule, not the doctor who's actually working and seeing patients. Because God forbid we inconvenience the insurance company. But now, Blue Cross is saying that they will only do their peer-to-peer reviews by calling the doctor who is asking for the treatment to be authorized. And they will only call once. And they won't tell you when they're calling. And they won't tell you what number they're calling from. So if you're a doctor seeing patients and you have your phone on Do Not Disturb because you're seeing patients, or you just don't answer numbers that you don't recognize, and you're seeing patients and you don't want to interrupt a patient visit, you're going to miss the call. And guess what? The treatment will not be authorized.
All right. So imagine that. I get robocalls all day. I think most people do at this point. You just can't avoid it. Once your number gets on the radar, that's it. You're always going to have them.
Right.
So everyone's just kind of stopped answering numbers they don't know, right? I don't.
Right.
So imagine you're a doctor and all of those calls, you got to answer them when you're with patients, because it might be a health insurance company. Like the perversity of this system. And that's where Luigi, who didn't do anything, anything, but the accusations against him have drawn a spotlight to this. And this is another reason I say the honeymoon with Trump is going to wear off real quick, because they don't even talk about this. They don't give a shit about this. And now that there is a spotlight on it, I think once they're in power, because this affects a lot of the MAGA base. What? If you're MAGA, you like losing your house because your wife got cancer? They like that. So when they start asking for answers to this, when they see, oh, getting rid of the immigrants didn't magically solve medical bankruptcy, and they start asking for an answer to this, they don't have an answer because they're billionaires that never cared about these people. They were very happy to suck up their adoration and their votes and their donations. They don't actually care about the day-to-day problems these people have. They care about their problems insofar as their issues are complementary to their interests. Yeah, you want to get rid of the immigrants? Yeah, okay. All right, but not the H-1B ones. Not those.
Right. I mean, this also is just, as picture perfect an example of the insurance companies doing what, a lot of, right-wing media likes to fearmonger about socialized medicine, where they say, well, do you really want the government getting between you and your doctor? And what the retort to that is always, well, insurance companies currently get between patients and your doctors. In this case, almost literally to the point where a doctor is in surgery and they have to leave the patient to take a call. You can't miss a call. Obviously, these can have catastrophic consequences for people when you're talking about stakes that high. But even on an everyday level, even the more relatively minor indignities that people have to suffer because of this back and forth bullshit, such as getting a medication greenlit by an insurance company, a medication that would be $800 a month if you didn't have insurance, but is $10 a month with the insurance. To get them to cover that often requires many back and forths and phone calls from numbers that you don't recognize that you might miss, in which case the whole process has to start over again. Right. Now they have to contact the primary care for a prior authorization. The doctor has to send the prior authorization to the insurance company, which then sends it to the pharmacy. And if, like I said, if one step in that chain is broken, the process has to start over. And now you're days more without medicine you need. Again, these are relatively minor examples, but these are everyday examples that are very, very common, that are extremely common. And so this is why everyone has a story about dealing with health insurance companies. Right. Because whether it costs you everything or not, it's cost everybody a lot more than it has to, because there's no reason for them to exist. Bottom line. They are parasites. The doctors view them as doctors don't like dealing with insurance companies. Doctors didn't go to medical school and learn about the miracle of the human body so that they can haggle with, insurance brokers in fucking pop-collared polo shirts. That's not why they went to medical school. They went to medical school to practice medicine, to treat people, to heal the sick. That's what doctors are. They don't like dealing with these people. These insurance companies serve no purpose but to suck money out of the system. Right. And this is why so much in America, this is why America is such a ripoff, because this is one example. But, legal fees, lawyer fees, we're a very litigious country. So much of our economy goes to people who don't produce anything, who don't provide goods or services that people actually want. They don't actually make things or do things that people want. Right. So yeah, that's a great example. And that tweet, the first one, I don't know what the second one did, but the first one went mega viral. That got 7 million views. So that is everywhere now. which is good. That reflects a changing of consciousness.
People are becoming more aware that the idea that you're going to talk about government death panels when you have private insurance company death panels, literally, that not a word about that.
Right.
All these people are people like Sarah Palin, people like she's been out of the spotlight for a long time, Michelle Bachmann.
Oh,
who
yeah,
were
yeah.
running around back then screaming about the death panels, just to distract people from the fact that these private insurance companies are death panels. What are they adding to healthcare? Healthcare should purely be between the doctor and the patient. The doctor should decide what the best course of treatment is for the patient, and that's it. What function does this serve other than to deny care and extract wealth? Obama went and said, yeah, if you start over, sure, but think about all the thousands of jobs. Go fucking sell pencils on the corner, you fucking grifting scumbags.
Yeah, find real work. How's that?
Find a real job. Go to medical school. How about that?
Right, yeah, exactly. Right.
More
exactly.
people will be going to the doctor when they're no longer denied care, with a barrier to entry being price.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is a great response to, well, what about all the jobs? Well, they could, they can get out of that business. They can get out of that business, right? Theater in a fire, thanks to the $10. 90% of wildfires are caused by arson or human accident. Fires do not randomly start just because conditions are dangerous for fires. Wildfire Statistics, Congressional Research Service 2023. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it couldn't have been an accidental fire in a yard that actually ignited it. I mean, obviously, I think that is possible, if not likely. But, do I think it was a coordinated arson attack? Like, there's no evidence for that. I'm not saying that's what the other super chatter was implying, but I'm just saying, that's what the warning was. The warning is, be careful smoking cigarettes, be careful lighting matches or cigarette lighters outside over these next few days because it's very dry and it's very windy. So yeah, that's how one thing can lead to another very, very quickly. And it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. I mean, there's almost nothing you can do once it accrues a certain momentum, as we've learned. Right? Krasinski Bassane says, recall L.A. mayor. Jeffrey Snyder says, Biden just needs to send the people in L.A. $700. There you go. Good call. All right, folks, we're going to try to do our patron shout out now. It did not work the other day. It don't crash my computer when I tried to do this, but let's see. All right. Is it going? All right, I think it's going.
It's going.
What the fuck is this? Why am I getting ads on this all of a sudden? Something going on with, I got to tell Jake to look into this. I don't know if this page, this is not working. Okay. No, there's something wrong with our link. Jake is going to have to fix that. That may have been compromised because now we're getting pop-up ads on the scroll. That never happened before. So I'm going to have to tell Jake about that. It could have something to do with the fact that he hooked the Google AdSense up to the website. Maybe that's why we got a pop-up. But we shouldn't have pop-ups on the website. That's weird. That's extremely weird. All right. Well, I apologize once again, folks. What I'm going to do is for Sunday, I'm going to make a video of the scroll. So we'll just have it as an upload since there's something wrong.
There you go.
I'll let Jake know about it because I think it has something to do with maybe the fact that he put AdSense to the website because we've never gotten a pop-up on the scroll before.
No.
That's weird that just happened. So either there's some funny business going on with our website or it's an AdSense
Probably
glitch.
not. I would say put Jake on it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Jake will handle it. All right, so I apologize once again, folks, for the lack of scroll. We are doing our best. Please bear with us at this time. It's not like we took a trip to Africa and forgot to handle it. Oh, hey, speaking of 723 likes. There you go. Well, folks, here, you know what I'm going to do then? See, if I can't do the scroll today, we should do this anyway. All right, so obviously we have a locals. We love our members. We give you lots of perks for signing up. So do dissidents.locals.com. But we're also raising money for our Project 2025. And so if you would like to chip in some money for that, you can go to givesendgo.com/do dissident. So here are the projects that we have slated for this upcoming year. Do Dissidents Project 2025. We are heading to workers' strike back in Seattle for February, looking to satisfy a $2,000 fundraising goal for that project. Russell's inauguration, that is inked, that is in the can already, so thank you for helping us fulfill that goal. And our big project of the year is the documentary on the Uhuru movement. So ultimately, we are looking to raise $10,000 for the year. That will get us those three projects. Those are very important to us. We're really excited for this new year. And so if you would like to chip in at givesendgo.com/do-dissidence, every penny that you put into Give, Send, Go goes towards paying for those projects. We do not pay ourselves for our time doing them. So you're not paying our salary by doing that. The show is what gets us through the month and gets our bills paid. The Give, Send, Go is exclusively for special projects. Every dime goes toward a special project. None of that goes into our pockets. That goes to the causes listed therein. So givesendgo.com/do-dissidence if you would like to chip in to our special projects fund for 2025.
La causa.
Yeah, there you go. All righty, what do we got here? Brad Gilbert, thanks for the $2. December 2022, LA voted Livable Community Initiative, WEF. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Theater in a Fire. I'm a fan, but the Dunning-Kruger effect is on full display in these wildfire segments. Well, there's no Dunning-Kruger effect. I told you. I learned about this yesterday. I'm under no illusion that I know what I'm talking about. I'm just telling you the best we could do in the limited time we had to research these topics. That's what I said. I said that. I said, every once in a while a story comes up where, like, you got to do the best you can in a limited time.
If people had listened to Donald Trump and started using the leaves to wipe their asses instead of toilet paper, there'd be no fire. We know. We know. We're just trying to run down a reliable source so we can report it that way.
Right. Exactly. Oh, yeah, you're the guy who said, 90% of wildfires caused by arson or human accident. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this was started by a fire in a yard somewhere. Like what? It's not like two sticks happened to rub together for 4 hours, and that's what did it. I'm sure it was, somebody, smoking a cigar or something. That's probably what it was. It's probably James Woods smoking a cigar.
Probably James Woods.
Yeah. How does that fit into your theory of the case there? NGJO, thanks for the $4.99. California should change the state name to Israel so they can get 22 spending bills. LOL. Thank you for that. Hey, Sparky's here.
Didn't work for East Palestine, though.
That's true. That is true. Sparky, thanks for the $10, says capitalism was forced to moderate due to the Cold War and work through the 1990s because of a residual, reasonable culture. I agree with that assessment, Sparky. I think you're right. Once that wore off, capitalism went out of control. Answer, mixed systems. Thank you, Sparky, for that observation. I think that is a good one. I've always said I think communism kind of kept the excesses of capitalism in check.
Sure, it's part of it.
Because capitalists were afraid that communist movements would get a foothold if they abused their power too much. And then once the threat of state socialism was seen to have been done away with, they were just unleashed. So I think that is spot on, Sparky. Asheville, Maui, East Palestine, and L.A. should be enough examples of why Canada and Greenland shouldn't surrender to American imperialism. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, that'll be a fun fight on our hands. Everything Keaton read sounds like the plot to the movie Backdraft. So a fireman lit the match that caused this. Just kidding. There you go. Thank you, 007. Angelo, the 90-year-old couple shouldn't worry about losing their house. Biden is signaling their $750 their $750 check right now. Capitalism is a complete failure. Thank you, 007, Angelo. Appreciate that very much. Hillary Hinton, insurance companies are frantically talking photos of their executives off their website. Taking, yes, we know that, absolutely. Yeah. Never understood the appeal of living in Cali. They've been moving here in droves because a $5 million house there is like $750,000 here in Texas. There you go. Thank you, miserable lib. Yep, that is true. Absolutely. All right. Susanna, I live about 10 minutes from the Palisades fire and less than 1 mile from an evacuation warning zone. The air is horrendous, just unimaginable. The smoke has permeated everything. Can't go outside. Jesus, what a nightmare.
Damn.
Well, stay safe, Susanna. Absolutely. I can't even imagine that. I mean, not being able to open the door. I mean, how do you...
I remember when it was coming down here from Canada, it was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Jules Elizard, thanks for the donation. Danish delegation here. There you go. Fine, take Greenland. Maybe the non-PMCs will wake up and see the U.S. is Europe as Latin America. Make Denmark a non-vassal again. There you go. That's an opinion. Kuznetsky was saying home insurance markets are starting to sound a lot like health insurance markets. Good one, Kuznetsky was saying. Appreciate that very much. All right, shall we move on to the penultimate segment of the afternoon?
We shall. All right, so this segment we call For Kids Who Can't Read So Good.
Right.
All right, so this is something that's been on my radar for a while because you want to talk about something that capitalism is not equipped to deal with. It's not equipped to deal with things where to fix it, you're going to cost big money interests a lot of money. You're going to see how the article that we start off with doesn't address at all what I consider the problem, although it does give you some facts about the problem. So for Gen Alpha, learning to read is becoming a privilege. Joshua Magone, a K-12 public school teacher in Frederick, Maryland, first noticed a change in his students about 10 years ago. They began to struggle with focus. So before you start yelling pandemic, 10 years ago, that predates the pandemic. Increasingly, younger kids were not nailing basic reading skills before third grade, a crucial window. Those who miss it have a tough road ahead in middle and high school. You know, I volunteered as a tutor for high school kids for a while. And that is what I saw. It's very difficult if you haven't developed those skills by that age, because you're talking about brain structure stuff.
Now, when was that? When did you volunteer as a tutor?
It's when I was living in California.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got frustrated by it because I felt like, wow, man, like if you are 16 and you have not developed those kinds of language skills, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the person would have to be extremely determined. It's not the kind of thing you could deal with in 45-minute sessions once a week.
Right.
Even adept readers in their tweens and teens have become afraid of complex or extended reading tasks and more comfortable with short texts or bite-sized summaries. Magone, who has a doctorate in education, shared one stark example. With struggling readers, he hands each child a book upside down and backward. They should be able to turn the book the right way up and open it at the first page, he said. These days, some students aren't able to do that. This is not unusual. Across the U.S., kids are struggling to read. Last year, reading performance for fourth graders hit its lowest level since 2005, and teachers expect that number to keep tumbling. The panic to turn things around quickly is driving a wedge between teachers, politicians, and parents, all pointing the finger of blame at one another. The Senate Education Committee, calling it a crisis, is pushing school districts to retrain teachers in a trendy new teaching style called the science of reading, which has dramatically improved literacy in some areas. Parents with resources to do so are moving their kids to schools that tout science-based teaching styles. Some teachers and policy experts worry this frenzy may have an ironic side effect, putting pressure on public schools to resolve a problem that cannot be tackled in the classroom alone. You get it. You're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Quote, "It makes the task of teaching harder," Magone said, referring to new literacy programs and a focus on test results. We're burning out at a faster rate, and it's causing a lot of apathy, unquote. Gen Alpha kids aged 2 to 12 need to discover the joy of reading, he and other teachers say. It's doable, but it's a more creative and slower process that many parents don't have time to wait for. There has never been a golden age for reading scores in America. The record high was in 2017 when 37% of U.S. fourth graders passed their NAEP reading test, just 5% higher than the most recent results. Still, this new low raised alarm among lawmakers who were already concerned about screens and loneliness among Gen Alpha. Quote, the long-term implications will be dire if literacy does not improve, Senator Bill Cassidy, the top Republican on the Senate Education Committee, said in February. We are at risk of having an entire generation of children, those who were in their prime learning years during the COVID-19 pandemic, fail to become productive adults if reading proficiency does not improve. His proposed solution, get all teachers to use the same evidence-backed teaching style. Teaching styles have served as political footballs for over 100 years. The fierce ongoing debate known as the Reading Wars dates back to at least the mid-19th century when Horace Mann, then Massachusetts Education Secretary, slammed the alphabet as skeleton-shaped, bloodless, ghostly apparitions and said children should be taught whole words rather than their structure. While teaching unions maintain that teachers should be able to draw from various teaching styles, it's a tough sell with parents. Well, we do have some footage of a new learning facility that's going to be open soon here in the city.
The Derek Zoolander Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good.
That one has potential. But if you notice, this article just once mentions screens, which, okay, yes, you have the pandemic, but this problem predates the pandemic. Can different teaching styles improve it? I'm sure, yes, that some ways of teaching reading are better than others and more successful than others. But, why would it be difficult to get kids to be interested in something that requires hours and hours of concentration? Well, you can't really address that without questioning almost the underpinning of our entire economy. This article goes back to 2014. Like, this is not something we haven't known about for a while. Too much screen time damages the brain. They literally, by 2014, had already done studies showing that the brain, this was specifically focused on children.
They've been talking about this for longer than Donald Trump has been on to the Delta smelt.
Even longer.
Think about that.
Even longer. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, they image children's brains. They literally are getting brain damage. Now, you want to talk about the incentives of capitalism. Even your children are not safe, right? Everyone's supposed to agree that the health of children is a priority. You can see in the food that some of the shit we give to kids should be illegal. And in many countries it is. You're not allowed to put the things in food for anybody, for children, for adults, for anybody. This is why we have childhood obesity. Similarly, children should not be allowed to have smartphones. They should not be allowed to have tablets. We knew 11 years ago that it was causing them brain damage. But if you create a standard like that, that's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars to industries that rely on addicting children to this technology. This is why even this article that talks about the problem, the only word they use referencing this element is screens. That's it. And then they run right to teaching styles, right to a debate about teaching styles to solve it. Because to actually address what is probably the core of the problem, that's going to cost a lot of money to a lot of very powerful people. So here, what is too much screen time? There's a more recent article from 2020. What is too much screen time due to children's brains? This week, a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics found that screen time may be associated with delayed development in young children. The findings were based on parent reports of screen time use at 1 year and developmental skills at ages 2 and 4 years from a group of nearly 8,000 young children. According to data using a validated screening tool, 1-year-olds who were exposed to more than 4 hours of screen time per day showed delays in communication and problem solving at ages 2 and 4. Also, more screen time for 1-year-olds was associated with developmental delays in fine motor and personal and social skills at age 2. This research supports several previous studies that have shown a correlation between the amount of screen time among young children and the presence of developmental delays, particularly in communication and problem-solving skills. A landmark National Institutes of Health study that began in 2018, for example, found that children who spent more than 2 hours a day on screen time activities scored lower on language and thinking tests, and some children with more than 7 hours a day of screen time experienced thinning of the brain's cortex, the area of the brain related to critical thinking and reasoning. Quote, there is emerging evidence that there may be some structural brain changes associated with greater exposure to screen time as a young child, says Dr. Jennifer F. Cross, attending pediatrician and a developmental and behavioral pediatrics expert at New York Presbyterian Komansky Children's Hospital. Quote, if young children spend most of their time engaging with an iPad, smartphone, or the television, all of which are highly entertaining, it can be hard to get them engaged in non-electronic activities, such as playing with toys to foster imagination and creativity, exploring outdoors, and playing with other children to develop appropriate social skills. Now, we're seeing all of this particularly in Gen Alpha, but we really, with Gen Z, really the first generation to grow up entirely immersed in this technology, we're seeing a lot of emotional problems, a lot of depression. For the first time, to my knowledge, I don't know that we've ever had a case, certainly in modern history, where from one generation to the next, level of sexual activity has dropped. And this is not because of a religious revival. It's because they're becoming socially damaged. Their ability, of course, they're sitting there in front of these screens, socially isolated. Part of the process of growing up is the jostling of social position and figuring out status games. We're social primates, and it's a difficult process. It's painful. That's the bittersweet quality of adolescence, right? On the one hand, you have some very beautiful experiences as you're coming of age, also very painful experiences as you're learning how to negotiate social environments. Well, if you live in a world where the technology allows you to have a much less risky and painful facsimile of social interaction, where you're behind a screen and you don't have to face the same kind of consequences that you might face for in real life social interaction, sure, the temptation, the easy path to take is to just avoid those situations. Yeah, I have our friend James who has been on the show a few times. He's an Uber driver. He says when he has Gen Zers, like people in their teens and 20s, it's creepy because they'll literally be sitting there on their phones, interacting on their phones,
right,
while being in the
together,
same car together. Right. They'll be, that's creepy science fiction shit.
Right.
That they would like hive mind into the technology rather than to turn around and face each other.
Right.
Now, this is not a simple matter of, well, it's just a different way of expressing yourself. It's a different way of living in the world. I remember Caitlin Johnston, who I usually love, she wrote an article a while ago because that photo went viral of kids sitting in front of art masterpieces looking at their phones.
Right.
And Caitlin Johnston writes this whole article suggests imagining someone confronting the person on the phone, and it turns out they were researching the art. I mean, come on, Caitlin, you know that's not what they're doing. Come on, I wish that were true. I wish that's what's going on there, but we all know that's not what's going on there. You can't blame the kids. It's not their fault. Like this hatred or contempt, the people, oh, look at this generation. When you see these kids completely, young adults having these emotional meltdowns. There was a video that went viral of a girl who had hit somebody's car. And it was an older woman, and the woman's calling the police. How can you have so hard, like just behaving like a maniac. And you see a lot of this with Gen Z, the first generation to really come into adulthood, to have spent their lives with this technology. Well, that's exactly what these brain studies tell you. It thins out the cerebral cortex. They have less emotional control. They have less impulse control. It's incredible, or maybe not so much given what we've seen with the food supply, that we know what this is doing to them. And that's very American. They don't want to solve the root problem, which would cost money and require enormous social and technological changes. They want to try to find a workaround that will leave the core problem, the core reason for the problem, unaddressed.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's all correct. And, you know, I could also just to think of that kind of interaction, it's very passive, right? Learning to read is very active. Engaging with other people is very active. Screen time is very passive. And it can be very placating, which is why a lot of parents, if the kid's acting up, you give them the tablet, right?
Sure.
That's the reflex, because it's a good short-term
Well,
sort
it's
of fix.
replaced putting them in front of the TV.
Right, right. And you can take it everywhere with you, you know, in the car. You could even have it with them, you know, to help them like go to sleep, you know, at night. You put them there with a tablet to sort of calm them down, right? Like there is the temptation of, pardon me, the short-term fix. But yeah, it is, it creates a certain passivity in people, as opposed to actually like working the brain muscle. And
and reading is the greatest brain exercise there is. It integrates the right and left hemisphere of the brain. It works multiple brain regions. Getting short bites of information on the internet is not the same thing, even if you are reading.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. I see some people talk about handwriting skills. Yeah, I noticed my handwriting was way better years ago when I would write a lot. And now, you know, you see handwriting not nearly as good as it used to be, because you just don't do it. It now takes me longer. It used to be, when I was growing up, it would take me longer to type something out than to write something down. Now it's the exact opposite. Now if I have to like write notes like on a piece of paper, which sometimes I do for the shows and stuff, if there's something in my outline that I forget to add and I want to add it, it takes me longer to write it down than it would to type it out. That's an indication of a change as well.
Yeah, so now, unlike most of the weirdos, freaks, hopheads, losers, and layabouts who do podcasts, you actually have kids.
Right.
So how do you plan on negotiating all this?
Well, I mean, you just have to, you know, engage the most you can with the sort of analog world. I mean, that's really what it comes to. You know, they have homework. I mean, you know, like obviously, you know, the teachers, like they don't have, I mean, they're in kindergarten. I don't know what the learning thing is. I don't know now the kids have screens in schools. I mean, my kids still have notebooks, you know, that they have to write in. They still do work on pieces of paper, you know. So far, you know, it has, I mean, they're still a little young to the point where like this would come into play like in an academic setting. But yeah, look, I mean, obviously, it's something that you think about. It's something that you know, concern yourself with. I mean, my guys are starting to get reading now too. I mean, they're like where they should be according to the teacher and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, hopefully they keep going at the rate that they're going, But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, my parents would govern my screen time. Like I was not one of these kids who was allowed to like play video games all day. Like I could like, and like after an hour, they would start yelling at me to get off, you know, which was good. Because I knew kids, when I would go over to a friend's house, sometimes they would just sit in front of that thing for hours and hours and hours and never like get tired. Like because I was not in the habit of having a lot of screen time, I would get tired of it, you know, sitting there for 2 hours playing a video game. I couldn't do it. But I knew a lot of kids who could.
Well, this is what they're doing. Well, I remember, look, when I was a kid, if you would put that in my house, I would have done it all the time.
Right.
That's why I never bought any kind of Wii or anything. I think I've kind of outgrown that. But yeah, I was very prone to being addicted to gaming. If they just didn't even have that technology when I was growing. They had Atari. It was nothing like what they have now.
Right. Yeah, no, it is something definitely to think about, and I think that I think there's definitely something there. I think there's definitely something there. Brad Gilbert, so your house burned down, insurance was denied. Who are you going to call? Luigi. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Virtuoso, Karen Bass strikes me as a person. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, actually, no. Why would you call him? The evidence against him didn't seem to have done anything. Karen Bass strikes me as a person that if you saw a victim being viciously attacked by a perp, she would yell out, "Somebody please dial 9." yeah, right, exactly. Somebody please dial. Yes, good one, Virtuoso. Kuznetsky Bassane, great book on dams, drought, and the U.S. West, Cadillac Desert by Mark Reisner. All right, interesting. All right. See, now this is my beat now. My beat now is endangered fish and irrigation technology. That's my I was thrust into it. Without that big aqueduct, says Sparky, the city of Los Angeles would never have been more than the town of Los Angeles. Jazz Gaga, thank you for the $4.99. If the Delta continues to be overpumped, the entire ecosystem will collapse. Smelt our indicator species. Their decline signals broader environmental degradation. Thank you. Kate, thanks for the $4.99. Would you do a story on Stickerman? He saves the day by covering congestion cameras with stickers in the UK. People there love it. Interesting. All right, I will look him up now that congestion pricing has come to New York. German Condor, they can cloud seed every Friday in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, but we can't do it in the most populous and expensive real estate in the U.S. Thank you, German Condor. What do we got here? MedWeb, thanks to the $19.99. As a NICU nurse, I had to leave Brooklyn to San Francisco to get a 40% raise. These hospital and insurance companies are much more evil than we realize. In New York City, we'd get unsafe patient ratios leading to the death of babies. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure the horror stories are endless. German Condor, I heard Russ quote Chinatown earlier. Didn't say the city's aquifers and water plans were being manipulated by the mob in that film?
Was it? It wasn't the mob. It was a wealthy cabal.
Yeah, I forget. I saw that movie when I was I only saw that movie once. I actually never saw it twice. I saw it when I was in high school, so I honestly forget the details of the plot.
It was pretty typically Raymond Chandler inspired.
Right.
Where the mob are hired guerrillas, but the people really behind it are leading citizens of the city and such.
Right. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Insurance companies deterring doctors and patients from moving forward with treatment is the biggest factor in the relatively huge reduction in average life expectancy in the U.S. in recent times. Sparky says, can Trump's recent comments about the hostages end up calling Bibi's bluff? Bibi clearly doesn't want them rescued, as it would take away the ostensible reason behind Israeli aggression and expansion. No, what I think is going to happen is the hostages are not going to be returned, and they're going to take that as a green light to just go ahead and just bulldoze the place in more horrific fashion even than now, if that seems possible. That's what I think. Randy Kagan, thanks for the $5. The Chinatown reference killed me. Last time I suggested the killing floor for your movie club. 2 other recommendations, Salt of the Earth and Blue Collar. All right, thank you, Randy. AK says, see Omar Suleiman's tweet about James Woods. We live in Encino. Heavy Zio presence here. I bet. That's the home of the porn industry, right? Glad the congestion pricing works to reduce car traffic, but it's a shame the money's going to be dumped into the MTA black hole. Thank you, Tumble Die. Appreciate that very much. But universal health care won't end racism and transphobia, sir, says Eric Rousseau. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Doc Durkin, it all comes back to insurance companies. The insurance sector may ultimately be the linchpin of the U.S. capitalistic economy. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Sparky says, do parents still read to their children? My parents read out of books to us between age 2 and 5, making us want to learn about how to get the stories out of the books without having to rely on our parents. Interesting. Thank you, Sparky. Sparky also says, my niece learned to read on her own at 3. Her parents noticed her reading signs and labels in the grocery store as they pushed their cart along. She has hyperlexia, the opposite of dyslexia. Interesting. The first word I remember learning how to read was ShopRite. I remember when we were driving past the ShopRite, I could read that the word said ShopRite, and I was like, oh, I guess I can read.
You actually remember that?
Yeah. Now it's the first. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely have a very, very vivid memory of that. Yeah. I was like, that says ShopRite, and I sounded it out. I'm like, oh, that means I could read now. So, yep, those are my first words that I read. Sparky says, ironically, my niece may have been helped along by a reading app she ran across on the internet via her mom's smartphone, something connected with Nickelodeon, if I recall. All right. Thank you, Sparky, for that very much. Appreciate that. All right, folks, we got one more segment on the day. Pretty quick one. This video has been making the rounds quite a bit. 4.3 million views. This is NBA star Dwight Howard talking about how he once tweeted Free Palestine and was promptly asked to delete it.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that you want to say, that you could say, but you know if you say it, there's gonna be repercussions. You could get in a lot of trouble. For example, a couple years ago when I played for the Houston Rockets, I tweeted Free Palestine, and I dang near got kicked out the league for it. And I'm like trying to figure out why, you know what I'm saying? I didn't, obviously, before that, the conversation happened with some Palestinians, and they were telling me, I actually went to the movies one day. I was in the movies in Houston. A whole bunch of Palestinians was like, hey man, we're big fans of you. Can we watch movies with y'all? So I'm like, cool, man. You know, when I was in Houston and Orlando and a lot of cities I played in, I would take fans to movies. I would take them to main event, do big events at David Buster's and stuff like that. So we go to the movies. After the movies, I'm taking pictures with all the, fans and stuff like that. And they asked me to just bring some awareness to what's going on in their country. So, me having a big heart, I'm like,
the Christian thing to do.
Yes, I'm like, you know what? I want people to know the struggles y'all having. I don't think it's wrong. So I tweet Free Palestine. Less than 10 minutes after I tweet that, I get a call from the commissioner of the NBA.
Stop it.
Agents, people like working with my foundation at the time, Texas, you got to erase this tweet. You got to take this down. You're going to get it. I'm like, what did I do that was so bad?
Can somebody explain to me?
Yeah, can somebody explain? And it was just like because I went against the grain. I said something that people didn't like. And now.
Not people didn't like, they didn't like.
So now it's like I got to stand on what I believe and how I feel and not go back on it.
Yeah.
And when you're in the league, you be in that place where if I say too much, or if I say something, I may not get a job no more.
That's that 70% of people that's out the league that got you.
I gotta hold my tongue, and that's so hard to do when you are faced with so many situations. You have things going on that may be outside the court. You may have situations with your teammates or the team going on, and you can't really speak on. And then I just got to a place where I couldn't trust nothing or nobody. So it's like I'm not gonna say nothing, do nothing. And then that was a problem too, because now other people are speaking for me.
There you go. Within 10 minutes, calls not just from one person, from the commissioner of the NBA, from charitable partners, just his whole network there panicked within minutes of that tweet going up. You have to take that down. You have to take that. Why?
Yeah, no. As a Jewish person, I really want to thank Israel for doing its part to knock down the belief that there's a secret cabal of Jews that have a stranglehold on the world's media and banking system. Thanks for really disabusing people of the idea that Jews have some kind of a dangerous influence going back to the beginnings of civilization. Thanks, man. You're making it so much easier for us to combat those kinds of anti-Semitic beliefs by harassing an NBA star that suggests maybe the genocide you're committing is out of line.
Yeah, well, this is where, it one thing just plays so strongly into the other, because the reason why there's panic around this is not because of Jews. It's because of the military-industrial complex. It's because they are our aircraft carrier in the Middle East. The reason there is fealty to Israel is not because they're Jewish people. It's because they're Europeans. They're white Europeans in the Middle East who represent the bulwark of Western civilization and Western influence, and most importantly, Western resources, Western power, economic power, and political power in a region where it might otherwise struggle to gain a foothold because it's not Europe. It's not Europe. And Israel is there as an aircraft carrier for Europe and the West.
Sure.
That is why there is such a strict rule around Israel, because if you speak against Israel, what you are doing in their mind is you are speaking against the hegemony of the West.
Right.
And the rights of the West, and especially of the United States, to exert its influence and extract wealth from that part of the world. And yeah, as Russell says, the fact that they're Jews makes it perfect, because now they're able to say, well, you're a bigot
the Holocaust,
if you speak against it. You're a bigot if you're against it. And it has nothing to do with being against Jews. It's about being against imperialism. It's about being against the arrogance of America and Europe to think that it has a rightful place in this part of the world and has a right to dominate that part of the world and extort money, frankly, from that part of the world, which is what it all comes down to at the end of the day.
Sure. But what a lot of people see is an NBA player saying, yeah, 10 minutes after I said free Palestine, I started getting calls, and they don't get into all that.
Right. They don't get into all that.
Israel is the greatest cause of anti-Semitism in the world today. Now, does that mean there'd be no anti-Semitism without Israel? Of course not. Do you have a lot of people who are anti-Semitic, completely independent of Palestine, who would be happy to see Muslims wiped off the earth too, who are taking advantage of the situation to spread anti-Semitism? Of course. Israel is making it very easy for them. Every day you have Israeli citizens break into a prison to free the IDF rapists that are caught on camera raping prisoners. Every day that you have more images coming out, spreading around the world of children being massacred and starved to death. Every day you have another story about famine being used as a weapon of war against a civilian population. That is a great day for anti-Semites. Overall, every day that you have this sick, genocidal apartheid state in the public mind representing Jews, it's a great day for anti-Semites. I had some asshole from the art scene arguing with me, saying, yes, I'm aware that a lot of Jews don't agree with their government. Deconstruct that. Right. This is somebody who thinks they're taking the side of Jews, sees it that way.
Right.
That Israel is the government of the Jews. Many people think that. They believe that Jews are for peace. We're basically Israelis not living in Israel, having an argument with our government.
Well, they do that on purpose. As Max Blumenthal says,
Of
they
course
stoke
they
that
do.
anti-Semitism on purpose. They benefit from that.
Yep.
They benefit from that because the more afraid Jews are to live anywhere but Israel, the more they feel they need Israel, right? That's the point. That's the point. But this was obviously, I mean, he's talking about a couple of years ago, even pre-October 7th, even before this was top of mind, in the way that it is now. He still couldn't have that tweet up for more than 10 minutes without getting calls from everyone he knew in any position of influence saying, you got to take it down.
Well,
Pretty chilling stuff.
and this is why most of the people in public life are so cowardly.
Right,
about
exactly.
this, because
Whitney Cummings said, I didn't go there. She said, I'm not going there. We saw Whitney Cummings' thing on CNN, the roast, where, she hits all these other third rails with COVID and Fauci and Pfizer and whatever, the Democrats rigging the primary, which is not a nice thing to say on CNN, for sure, for their audience. But she said in advance, when she was sort of crowdsourcing and finding out on social media what people wanted her to talk about, she says, I'm not even going to go and touch the Israel-Palestine issue. Like, that was one of the areas that she just said, like, hey, I can't go there.
Well, that's why I have no fucking patience for these people in general when they want to start getting on their soapbox and talking politics. Because one of the greatest political issues of our time, if not the greatest, is something that you won't touch because you're too much of a coward. So why would I be interested in what you have to say about anything else?
Exactly. All right, folks, we're going to take some more Super Chats and Rumble Rants before we close the lights on the stream today. Doc Durkin, it all comes back to the insurance companies. The insurance sector may be ultimately the linchpin of the U.S. capitalistic economy. I agree. Eric Rousseau, will these healthcare insurance companies still cover penis removals? There you go. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Just in case, what y'all think about Trump sharing Wall Street Apes post of Jeff Sachs trashing Netanyahu yesterday on Truth Social? I thought I was seeing things. I'll have to look into it. We'll probably cover that. Probably cover that on Jimmy's show tomorrow. I'll have to look into it. We were really hustling to put together the show today with the fires, and so we will probably do that one tomorrow. Will be my guess. Thank you for that, though. This is your brain on capitalism. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. I was also a pinball wizard, 60s, 79s kid. There you go. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. Let's see here. Koa Music and Things. Thanks for the $4.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Eric Maines. Thanks for the $5. Watch 1985 Twilight Zone episode Examination Day, written by Henry Slesar in 1958, about a dystopian future where children take mandatory state IQ tests. Interesting. Thank you, Eric.
What's it called?
Examination Day, 1985 Twilight Zone.
You're talking about that reboot they did in the 80s.
Yes, apparently. Marvin Vargas, thanks for the $5. Think BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, private equity funds get cheap real estate after fire. California, like Hawaii. Thank you, Marvin. Derek P, thanks for the $5. Thoughts on Trump posting Jeffrey Sachs' comments on the deep state wars? Yeah, like I said to our Rumble Ranter, we'll have to look into that for tomorrow. I'm sure that'll be on the list. I can't imagine it wouldn't be. Sounds like an interesting story. Medweb, thanks for the $4.99. I knew I hit rock bottom at age 6 when I thought the word purchase meant pure cheese. I got my fat ass in the books to change my life around. There you go. Thank you for that. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Are you insinuating that Netanyahu's not the Pope of Judaism? Yes, thank you, Sparky. Brett Yoendo says, hey, Russ, I just bought Chaos. Excited to read it. Keaton, have you read it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
It seems to have had an effect on all those who have read it. I have not. But I know Russ has, and I liked it very much. Hillary Hinton, this Sudan genocide designation is basically Blinken smacking us in the face with his dick. I mean, gaslighting doesn't get any more gassy than this, right? Even Charles Boyer is blushing. Thank you for that, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, that is our show. Appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. We got one more on the week tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Jimmy Dore Show. We will see you all then. If you would like to join our show, like I said, we're going to figure out our scroll, what was wrong with the scroll today. We'll get Jake on the case, and we'll have that for next time. But if you would like to support the program and make what we do possible, go to dodissidents.locals.com. If you're on Rumble now, you could sign up by clicking the bright red join button underneath the screen. That takes you to our locals page. Everybody else, the link is dodissidents.locals.com. You get call-in access to our Q&As, bonus live streams, special live stream events, and, of course, your name up on the scroll when we get it working again, which we'll have it working again by Sunday, by hook or by crook. So thank you guys all very much for being here today. We appreciate you. Good to see you as always. We will see you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on the Jimmy Dore Show. And then back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Sunday night for the flagship broadcast. Until then, thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.